When I got to the next beautiful spot in my rental car, my mother-in-law called. As if she had been there the whole time, it was my wife's mom. Then I asked, "Hello, Mrs. Johnson, what's up?" With a knowing look at my husband David. On the other end, her voice was crazy. "Leave David alone right now. Get your clothes and a bag and go to the bus stop by the rocks. Tell me what you're talking about, Mrs. Johnson. David is going to hit you. He's hiding a gun in the car." That's the gain she was following. I can't believe David would. "Okay, I'll leave right away." Even though my answer was a little flat, it seemed to have persuaded her. She hung up right away. "My name is Emily Johnson, and I'm 29 years old. I work in an office. David and I got married last year, but because of the COVID outbreak, we only recorded our marriage. Because we've been able to travel since the plague is over, we're planning our late vacation. Our bosses were flexible and let us take time off for our vacation. We picked a national park because we wanted to take lots of pictures, even though we haven't been married in a while. David likes to edit videos for fun, while I like to take pictures of landscapes. We've even talked about making a YouTube account just for landscape movies. Since we got married, our life has been quiet but happy, but there has been one worry. Mrs. Johnson, David's mom. Her son David has always made her happy. Whenever David and I talked about getting married, she always seemed to be against me. Her sneaky advances against me in meetings happen all the time, and what's worse is that she does them without David knowing. Insidiously, she would disparage me whenever I received compliments or expressed myself during a family gathering. "Emily, did you make the stew? There's no one else like this dish around here, but it tastes good. That tastes really good. Could you tell me how to make the stew? I'd like to make it at home if it's easy. Did you enjoy it?" I'm happy. I'm going to write down the recipe right now. "That's fine, Emily, but you might also want to learn some local recipes. It will make people praise you more." It works like that most of the time. She is not complimenting my one-of-a-kind stew. Instead, she is telling me to stick to the traditional recipes and not stand out. In fact, there was a lot of snark when the family left and Mrs. Johnson and I were doing the dishes alone. A frightening woman who was always striving to stand out by preparing such a salty stew and intended to give our family hypertension or something. I took a bite. "Was it too salty for you? Next time, I'll use less salt. I no longer even want to eat your salty stew. Next time, do something more traditional." But when David comes around, she acts much differently. Uncle John told Emily, "Thanks for the stew recipe. Your dish seemed to be a hit with everyone." "Really then? That's wonderful. What do you want to eat tomorrow?" "David, Emily, and I are going to make it together." She would smile and smile her way into our talk. To change the subject, it's so obvious that it's hard to be mad about it. After that, it became kind of a joke for us. The funny part is that David already knows about her double-dealing and sly jabs. I'm always in trouble with Mrs. Johnson when her son isn't around because she thinks he doesn't see. But David, my husband, already knows her and even films or records her in secret when things get too bad. David has never liked how his mother's love is too much, which is really just too much meddling. It seems to have even crushed his hopes for the future. So when we got married, David, not me, said we couldn't live together. Even though it was a happy event, Mrs. Johnson seems to believe that I was the one who lied to him. She can't see anything around her because she loves her son too much. I'm afraid she'll do something stupid soon. Another thing is that we finally chose the details for our late trip. With our interests in mind, we chose a trip through some of the country's most beautiful spots. I'm happily getting cameras and other tools ready. David is also getting a smartphone to record movies that doesn't have a SIM card. That's why we packed a bag with clothes and toiletries. On this trip, we'll be able to see mountains and drops. I want to take beautiful pictures, so we need to check the weather forecast too. That's right. Misty and beautiful landscapes are hard to describe, but I really hope it's sunny today. As we continued to get ready, we laughed together. But Mrs. Johnson still gets in the way, even now. That was a call. Like I said, it's Mrs. Johnson. Hello, I said when I picked up the phone in front of David. I quickly put it on speakers. Hi, Kate, Emily. Are you really going to go on the trip with David? You've been married for more than a year, and now you're taking a honeymoon? What do you think? It looks like she doesn't want me to go on vacation with my husband. To deal with this, the best thing to do is show off your trip. Well, we finally don't have to follow any rules. David's business and mine have both agreed to let us take time off for our vacation, which we're going to make the most of. She took my bait and became my wife. What do you mean, have fun? It's probably just a bad trip and a cheap hotel. I feel bad for David. The things Mrs. Johnson said made David frown and keep quiet. David was the one who planned this trip, not a travel agency. I changed how I spoke after seeing David's face. No, it's not a cheap hotel at all. David set everything up. We're staying at a very fancy hotel with a great view. The food is also 5 stars, but the prices are very low. I spoke nicely on purpose to make Mrs. Johnson angry. I'm always getting picked on, and this time she was making fun of the trip that David planned. A really high-end hotel. Why do you want to go with David? I want to go on that trip. David would want to show me how thankful he is for his family. After hearing about the very fancy hotel, she couldn't keep quiet. Now she's saying she wants to go on the trip herself. This is not the kind of honeymoon that a mother would crash. It's not going to happen. It's rude to step in on your son and daughter-in-law's long-awaited vacation. We'll make sure you have a souvenir. Saying goodbye, I hung up the phone, picturing Mrs. Johnson's angry face. I laughed meanly, and when I hung up, David had his head held up in front of me. I'm sorry about my mom, Emily. She tried to ruin our holiday, which I can't believe. She probably just wanted to express her deep affection for her son, she explained. Don't be worried about it. There was a hint of worry in my voice as I smiled at David, because I was so angry at her. I beat her at her own game, but I might have failed. What would happen if Mrs. Johnson got really excited about our vacation and started bothering us? This fear of mine turned out to be right in the end. From that point on until the trip left, Mrs. Johnson didn't say a word, not even a call. I thought she would tell David bad things about me. That also didn't happen. Even though her quiet scared me, we went on our getaway as planned. David's choice of beautiful places worked out perfectly, and I was happy with the whole thing. It was the best in every way. The view, the services, the food, everything. That's why I told Mrs. Johnson how great it was. We even asked the hotel staff to take a shot of us having dinner together. David, I'm so full. Thank you so much for setting this all up, I said as I fell asleep on the hotel bed. It felt so soft and cozy on the bed. David, my husband, was very happy to see me rolling around in bed. He said, I'm glad you like it. Let's go to the spa after you've had a chance to rest. I'll look at the pictures and movies we took today while we wait. The health spa. What a wonderful place. David suddenly raised his voice. He had been opening his laptop and watching me enjoy the soft bed. I finally asked, what's going on here? When I heard something strange in David's voice, I got out of bed and looked at his computer. Our plan for today was to rent a car and get around. We parked the rental car and took pictures and movies at every beautiful place we went. In some places, you could see the rental car in the background. That wasn't a problem in and of itself, but there were times when a strange person, who looked like a small woman, was hanging out near the rental car. Even though we couldn't see her face, we thought the strange person was a small woman. The suspect was opening the car door every once in a while. Oh, look at this. Because we were only there for a short time, we didn't lock the car, David said in a low voice through the screen. I knew what kind of hat the suspicious person was wearing. Hey, this hat. Doesn't Mrs. Johnson have one like this? When I said, yes, Mrs. Johnson has a similar hat, David's face went pale. That's correct. This is my mom's hat. David and I looked at the computer screen with wide eyes. The person who seemed sketchy was putting something black into the rental car. They looked like Mrs. Johnson. She looked like she was taking something out of the trip bag that she had left in the rental car. Then, after some time, the strange person left without taking anything. Something was put in the bag for the trip. I quickly threw it out. It had a strange weight to it. I didn't notice the change in weight because the bellman carried it for us when we got to the hotel. It was a bag with clothes and toiletries in it, but nothing important. It looked like nothing was stolen. After that, a strange thing came out of the bottom of the bag. What came out shocked David and me. What is this? You're kidding me. We were both very tired when we left the hotel the next morning. Because of the amazing thing that came out of the bag the day before, we were very busy. The phone almost always rang at the exact moment we got to the next beautiful spot in the rental car. It came from Mrs. Johnson. David was on the phone, so I told him to pick up. Hello, Mrs. Johnson, what's going on? The person on the other end of the phone from Mrs. Johnson sounded very upset. Get away from my kid right now. Get the bag with extra clothes in it and go to the Cape's bus stop. How does she know there's a bus stop close to the Cape where we're on vacation? What about our luggage? How does she know about things like the bag with the extra clothes? She called at just the right time, so I think she's probably hiding and watching somewhere. There were a lot of confusing parts of the call, so I asked Mrs. Johnson for a reason. Tell me what you're talking about, Mrs. Johnson. David is getting ready to attack you? He has a gun hidden in the car. Oh, I see. That's the case. I pretended to follow Mrs. Johnson's lead. Even though I already knew everything, it's not possible. David is hitting me. Okay, I get it. I'm leaving now. Even though my answer was a little stiff, I think I was able to trick Mrs. Johnson. Mrs. Johnson hung up right away. I waved to David, who was driving, and then took the bag and went to the bus stop. I didn't forget to act scared, of course. After that, I called the cops. After about 5 minutes, I got to the Cape's bus stop, where an investigator in an unmarked police car met me. Well, yesterday's prediction came true. The agent looked upset and said, I never thought you'd really call it in. I'm truly sorry that I took part in this joke. Please come with me. I think David should have caught Mrs. Johnson by now. As I drove back to the rental car, the investigator followed me in his plainclothes car. Yes, I could hear Mrs. Johnson's words from where we parked the rental car. Hey, David, how did you know where I was? It looked like Mrs. Johnson had no idea that her evil plan would be found out ahead of time. My husband found her hiding in the shade of a gazebo in the parking lot and caught her. Not right now. Today, I won't forgive you. Mrs. Johnson was scared by the way her husband looked like a demon. She was even more shocked when she saw me come back with the detective. As Mrs. Johnson had planned, I had a travel bag in my hand. The moment Mrs. Johnson saw it, she yelled, Officer, arrest that woman right away. There's a gun in that bag, she says. She wants to use it to kill my son. Mrs. Johnson yelled at me in that manner, displaying a proud expression as she did so. I stood still in front of Mrs. Johnson and dumped the bag's contents on the ground. The pants were wrapped up in a small bag so that the men wouldn't be able to see them. While Mrs. Johnson looked for something, she couldn't find it. What? Where is the gun? It should be there since I put it there yesterday. Is this the gun you are looking for? The detective showed Mrs. Johnson a picture. It was a picture of a hunting gun put in a plastic bag. Upon seeing the picture the detective showed, Mrs. Johnson's face went pale. That shooting gun belonged to my late father-in-law, didn't it? Honestly, how did you manage to open the gun safe? When I found it yesterday, I thought my heart would stop. I gave it to the cops right away after calling them. Mrs. Johnson clenched her teeth and looked down when she heard my voice and the voice of my husband. Oh, Emily is to blame because it was in her bag. It has nothing to do with me. Mrs. Johnson began yelling out of panic. My husband and I both let out big sighs. The officer then came up to Mrs. Johnson with a big smile on his face. Yes, we had to ask Emily about it since it was in her bag. Yesterday was supposed to be a holiday, but we questioned her for hours. Why did you know that Emily's gun was in her room bag? Even though the detective was happy, his voice was soft. I can see why he's mad. Besides, The shooting gun was taken out without permission, even though it wasn't trained. It was in Emily's bag, though. Because Mrs. Johnson couldn't face the detective, she desperately tried to explain herself. Oh, so you saw Emily's travel preparations, but you and Emily's family are separated, aren't you? Of course, we're separated, and we haven't let her into our house for a year. When that was said, Mrs. Johnson yelled back, "Don't speak out of turn." The police officer pressed Mrs. Johnson even more. "Oh no, were you watching Emily's house? No, that's not a good thing to do. You need to go to the station with us." Mr. Johnson freaked out when she heard the detective's line, which sounded like it came straight from a police show. "No, I wasn't spying. So you can't take me against my will. I put that gun in there." Oh, she told everyone on her own. Well, I had already said it earlier when I turned the bat inside out. Before this, the detective had been happy, but now he wasn't. All right, a confession. You'll be coming with us on your own because you broke the gun rule. Mrs. Johnson was shocked when the detective spoke. What? Why? Didn't I say I wasn't spying? When Mrs. Johnson spoke out against it, her son got very angry. It makes sense, Mom. The gun your dad gave you was yours, but you don't have a shooting license. There would be no problem if the father-in-law, who had a shooting license, carried it properly for the right reason. You can't take it out of the gun safe because you don't have a shooting license. Mrs. Johnson didn't seem to know anything about gun rules or how to handle guns. I don't know how she got it this far without an accident, even though the live ammo was kept separate and not put into the gun. Even so, Mrs. Johnson still refused. But it had to be in that woman's bag when it was found at the hotel. That woman took it from my house. I'm not to blame. His mother, Mrs. Johnson, was acting badly, so her son got angry. I recorded yesterday when Mom put a gun in her rental car. Of course, I gave it to the cops. What David said made Mrs. Johnson weak in the knees. What? How? How did you learn about it? She was so angry that tears filled her eyes. I told them instead of him. Yesterday, David was recording and got a shot of the parking lot. We didn't see it at the time, but we did see it when we watched the video at the hotel. Mrs. Johnson could no longer disagree with what I said. At this point, the officer told Mrs. Johnson, who was shocked, "Now, Mrs. Kate Johnson, we'd like you to come with us to the station because we think you broke gun laws." When David said those words, Mrs. Johnson's face turned sad. "Why, David? Why is that woman better than me? Are you leaving your mom?" The detective pushed Mrs. Johnson, who was yelling, into the empty police car. "You might not want to make a fuss. When I called the house yesterday to check the gun's serial number, your son's grandma, who I think is an old woman, was very angry. As soon as the agent said that, Mrs. Johnson calmed down. That grandmother is David's grandmother. She is old, but she is still healthy and doesn't show any signs of dementia. She's pretty much in charge of the Johnson family. At this point, Mrs. Johnson is completely giving in to her. She's the head of the family, but she's not mean to other people. When I go to see my in-laws, she's always so happy to see me and calls me Emily dear. She is nice, but Mrs. Johnson has to do her jobs the right way. Her own room and bathroom were taken care of by her. What made her so mad must have been pretty tough, I said under my breath. The detective told me, "It looks like your husband's grandmother has been keeping the shooting gun as a keepsake since your father-in-law died. But the other day, the box with the memory in it was broken into. When they found out that, it caused the current fuss. Her anger was unbearable." I see. To get the key, Mrs. Johnson must have searched her whole room. I told her it's easy to see how angry she would be that her son's keepsake was broken. After handing over the rifle at the station, I asked to take a picture of it for her so she could at least keep a photograph as a memento. I said, "My husband's grandmother was mean to Mrs. Johnson. She had cried and said sorry to me and David. A family member who went to pick her up said that she yelled at Mrs. Johnson in a way that could be heard all over the neighborhood for more than 30 minutes. Oh, your grandmother really does get that mad. That's why Mom always did what Grandma said. Now everyone in the neighborhood knows what Mom did wrong," I said. Yes, thanks to his grandma's lecture, the incident became widely known, and Mrs. Johnson could no longer walk the streets. When his grandmother found out that David had broken up with her, she got permission from the police station and the prosecutor's office to send Mrs. Johnson to a farm run by a relative in the Nebraska mountains, in an area that looks like a basin. She could come back, but it would take 3 hours to get here by car. She was working so hard on the farm that she couldn't possibly get away. After some time, it turned out that I was pregnant. The family, my husband, and his grandma were all very happy. His grandmother was already excited about having a great-grandchild and started to work on making her legs stronger. My husband and her are going to fight to see who can take the baby for walks in the pram. I hope she doesn't drop the great-grandchild while holding it. She has also begun to improve the strength of her upper body. It's nice to see her getting her mood back. She was really down because of Mrs. Johnson's fuss. My husband and I are getting all of the baby stuff together today. I'd like to live with your grandmother if it's possible. She's really excited about it, and it looks like she'll live a long time following the birth, taking care of the child with grandma. I told them, we'll figure it out some way. Well, if she lives longer, I'll be happy to. My husband said, I'll talk to grandma about it. I took out the camera. I rubbed my belly and said, when the baby is born, I'm going to take lots of pictures of the baby, my husband, his grandmother, and the rest of the family. Hi, I'm Liz Thompson, 27 years old. Been married for 5 years with my husband James, who's 30. We have a little boy named Jack, he's 4. I used to work full-time, but now I'm part-time at the same job. James won me over with his determination, and that's how we ended up together. When James and I were dating, he was really sweet, but after we got married, he became controlling, like he thought he didn't need to make an effort anymore. He's super lenient with his younger sister, Jennifer, who's almost 20. Even though there's a big age gap, he spoils her rotten. Before we got married, I got along fine with her, but things changed. Jennifer started showing up at our place all the time, and James would drop everything to cater to her. It's like I'm just a roommate, and she's the queen of the castle. She never brings anything when she comes over and acts like it's totally normal to ignore me. As usual, James invites Jennifer to join us for dinner, even though it was just supposed to be the 3 of us. She accepts without hesitation, saying that's why she came. I quietly remind James that there's only enough food for 3, but he insists I give my portion to Jennifer since she's here. He even suggests I should always prepare extra in case she shows up unexpectedly. Jennifer apologizes to me, but it feels more like she's happy James is on her side. James scolds me for not being more accommodating to his sister. Feeling frustrated, I make something for myself and join them at the dining table. When Jennifer sees me, she asks James to have a private conversation, excluding me and my son from the table. This isn't the first time I've had to move Jack's meal elsewhere and eat separately. After they finish eating and I start cleaning up, I notice James and Jennifer chatting on the couch, leaving the dishes for me to clean. It feels like they see me as a maid, ignoring both me and my son. I sigh and begin cleaning up, getting ready to bathe Jack. As I approach them, James asked me to get a piece of strawberry sponge cake from the bakery downtown for Jennifer. It was nearly 8 p.m., and I knew it was time to bathe Jack and put him to bed. When I explained this, Jennifer complained to James, saying she really wanted the cake and that skipping Jack's bath for 1 day wouldn't hurt. James started getting angry, knowing the argument would persist until I agreed. Reluctantly, I agreed to go to the bakery. The bakery was about to close at 9 p.m., so I hurried to get ready, knowing I could make it in time. As I prepared, I overheard James and Jennifer talking loudly, criticizing me for being inflexible and questioning why James married me. Jack wanted to come along, so we decided to go together. As I stepped out, James shouted that we'd get a divorce if I defied him again, and Jack, though young, looked concerned. Trying to hold back my tears, I asked Jack what kind of cake he wanted. His eyes lit up as he said he wanted a cake with lots of apples. We chatted happily about cake on the way, momentarily forgetting the hurtful words. When we reached the cake shop, it was almost closing time. I bought 2 slices of strawberry sponge cake and 1 slice of the fruit-covered cake Jack wanted, though the options were limited. Back home, I served James and Jennifer their cake slices and put one for Jack on a plate, heading to the dining table. Jennifer remarked that Jack's cake looked better, and surprisingly, James swapped it with hers. When Jack protested, Jennifer ignored him and ate his cake. James justified it by saying he bought it with his money, dismissing Jack's right to choose. I was furious and confronted them, but James threatened divorce again. Jack stopped crying, but his worried look broke my heart. After a moment's thought, Jack began eating the strawberry shortcake that Jennifer was meant to have. "Mommy, this cake is delicious. I'm glad I got this one," he said, trying to mask his discomfort. It was distressing to see 3 adults subjecting a young child to such a situation. When Jennifer reached for Jack's cake, I quickly intervened, suggesting we eat in another room. I wanted Jack to enjoy his cake in peace. James protested, saying it was fine for Jennifer to have a bite, but I ignored him and took Jack to the other room. There, watching Jack savor his cake, I felt a sense of relief. Afterward, we bathed together, ignoring James and Jennifer, and cuddled up in Jack's bed. The next morning, Jennifer had already left when I woke up. As I prepared breakfast, I heard Jack crying and found his porcelain piggy bank, a gift from my father, broken with the money missing. Jack always said goodnight to it, as he did last night. I suspected James knew something about it, and when I asked, he admitted Jennifer broke it for money without remorse. As I comforted Jack, tears streamed down my face. It was heartbreaking to see James prioritize Jennifer over Jack's well-being. His callousness pierced me, and the mix of sadness and anger engulfed me. James, unmoved by our tears, complained about feeling gloomy in the morning, leaving me shattered. I couldn't hold back my frustration any longer and confronted James. "Don't you see how wrong this is, making Jack cry like this?" It was the first time I spoke out in anger. I never wanted Jack to witness marital discord, but I couldn't contain myself anymore. James didn't respond. Instead, he stormed off to the bedroom and returned with divorce papers, thrusting them at me. "If you're not happy with me, let's end it," he said before leaving for work. Jack had never cried over anything involving James and Jennifer before, but since last night, he had been inconsolable. I, too, had reached my breaking point. "Jack, let's take a break today and skip daycare, okay?" I suggested. Jack cheered, thrilled at the idea of spending the day with me. "Mommy's the daycare teacher today, right?" he said, his face beaming as he nestled on my lap, looking up at me with pure joy. I marveled at how much patience a young child like Jack must have. So we made a pact to spend the day playing to our heart's content, releasing all that bottled-up patience. I knew taking the day off work would be inconvenient, but I believed it was the best thing for Jack. After explaining the situation, I managed to get some time off. We spent the morning at the park, playing until we were exhausted, then returned home for lunch. Jack seemed unusually tired and cuddled up to me like a little baby, falling asleep on my lap. Normally, he naps on the couch alone, but today he wanted to be close to me. Instead of doing housework during his nap, I decided to cherish this special moment, finding solace in watching Jack sleep peacefully. Suddenly, I heard the front door unlock, much too early for my husband James to be returning. Instinctively, I grabbed a nearby bag and swiftly hid in the bedroom closet, holding Jack close. As I listened intently, I recognized the familiar voice of the intruder. It was Jennifer. She seemed to be searching for something, muttering in frustration. Why does she have a key? What is she looking for? I wondered anxiously. Peeking out from the closet, I observed Jennifer's movements and listened to her murmurs. After rummaging through various items, she made a phone call, expressing her inability to find whatever she was searching for. Mentioning bro, presumably James, she eventually left, locking the door behind her. The mystery of what Jennifer and James were seeking lingered in my mind. I carefully laid sleeping Jack on the bed and tried to make sense of what had transpired. Perhaps James and Jennifer were searching for something belonging to me, but I couldn't fathom what it could be. The whole situation left me feeling like James was a stranger, filling me with fear. Hastily, I packed Jack's things into the bag I had grabbed earlier. Just as I finished, Jack stirred awake. "Jack, let's go to Grandpa's house," I said, taking his sleepy hand. We hurried to the station and caught the train to my parents' home, just 2 stops away. Arriving unannounced, my parents were surprised to see us. Once Jack was home, he happily engaged with our family dog, bringing a sense of normalcy to the unexpected visit. As we discussed what had happened with my parents, I shared my feelings of fear and explained the situation. I speculated that Jennifer might have been searching for my banking card for my single days, and my parents agreed it was a possibility. You see, I used to run a successful online shop for handmade goods back then, which later expanded with the help of my friends in the same business. Even after getting married and having Jack, I continued to manage the business part-time from home, with my friends overseeing its day-to-day operations. Surprisingly, I hadn't told my husband that I'm still the president of the company, although he knows about my previous success in starting a business when I was single. I'm still employed at my company, but I've kept it hidden from my husband. He believes I've stepped down from my role as president and now work part-time. There's a reason for my secrecy. After we decided to marry, I learned he spends his entire salary with no savings. He expected me to quit and become a full-time homemaker, offering only $300 for groceries. I couldn't agree to this. After heated discussions, we compromised on me working part-time. But that wasn't all. He had me sign a legal document, limiting my claims to marital assets, making me feel financially trapped. Even after our child was born, I only received money for groceries, while I covered clothing and daycare expenses. My compliance may have led him to believe I still have savings from my single days, explaining why they're searching for my old banking card. Furthermore, I've been quietly saving for our child by diverting a portion of my salary to a separate account. It's clear they're after the banking card for financial reasons. There's no other reason for those siblings to be searching, but I'm cautious with my valuables, like my banking card. So even if Jennifer or my husband search, they won't find anything. The bigger issue is Jennifer having a key and unrestricted access to our home, a situation my husband seems fine with. My father suggested keeping my banking card at our family home, so I followed his advice and secured it in our family safe. However, he raised another concern. Why is he so desperate for money? While discussing this with my parents, Jack approached us tearfully, admitting he had broken the piggy bank from my father and failed to save money in it as promised. My father was furious, his face turning red with anger. My father was on the verge of calling my husband to express his anger when my mother intervened. "Let's confirm if the banking card is their real objective," she advised. Acting hastily without evidence could backfire, especially considering my husband's casual mention of divorce. He might exploit the situation, painting us as the wrongdoers to gain leverage in a divorce. So we decided to record their conversation to uncover their true intentions and consulted our family lawyer, a longtime friend of my father. Once home, I began preparing dinner as my husband arrived. I discreetly started recording on my phone, placing it face down. As expected, his first question was about the banking card's whereabouts. When I pressed for his reason, he evaded the question, growing frustrated when met with silence. "My sister's in trouble, so hand over all your part-time earnings," he demanded. I refused, explaining I was saving for our child. In response, he pulled out a signed divorce paper from his bag and thrust it at me. "You can't even manage without me, yet you're arrogant. It's fine not to save for our child anymore," he sneered, implying his sister took precedence over Jack. Without another word, he left me stunned. I halted my dinner preparations, stashed the divorce papers in the bag I'd readied earlier at my parents' house, and took Jack's hand, heading for the front door. "If you leave now, don't bother coming back. I mean it, my husband warned." "I don't want to return to a house where Jennifer can come and go freely," he added. With that, I left the familiar confines of our home. My husband bombarded me with calls and emails, all of which I ignored as I made my way to my parents' house. There, I played the recorded conversation for my parents and showed them the divorce papers my husband had handed me. They asked what I wanted to do. I admitted I'd reached my limit of patience and love, but Jack's well-being was my primary concern. My parents suggested divorce might spare Jack further emotional harm, but they also acknowledged the potential for new wounds. Lost in contemplation, Jack mentioned he was hungry, prompting my mother to whip up his favorite meal, hamburgers. She had anticipated our arrival and stocked up on ingredients accordingly, ready for us to return home at any moment. Tears streamed down my cheeks uncontrollably. I couldn't contain them. Jack's delighted reaction to the hamburger was heartwarming. "I wish Grandma could make these every day," he beamed, sharing his joy with my mother. "That's because each bite is filled with love," she responded tenderly. Then Jack fed me a piece, insisting it was filled with love and urging me not to cry. It was too much. I cried even harder, seeing Jack's concern for me. My father intervened, telling Jack these were tears of joy because I was so happy with his sweet gesture. He explained it gently, shielding Jack from any worry. Then my mother hugged Jack, moved by his innocence. I glanced at my father, noticing his struggle to hold back tears, his emotions mirroring mine. When I remarked on the beauty of family, Jack surprised me. "Dad says his family is just Jennifer, but my family is Grandma and everyone else," he said, drawing a contrast. My father agreed, emphasizing our bond. Then, with a playful gesture, he asked if we wanted to be a family forever, lifting our spirits with his humor. Reflecting on our joyful meal, I realized it had been too long since we had relaxed together like this. It was a moment of clarity. I needed to proceed with the divorce. I explained my decision to Jack slowly, fearing his reaction. Surprisingly, he seemed relieved, finding solace in staying with the family. Even our older dog, back at my parents' house, received a warm embrace from Jack, who declared him his little brother. With clarity and determination, I knew what had to be done next. It was time to take action. The next day, I made arrangements to meet with my father's friend's lawyer to discuss my situation and finalize my decision to divorce. That night, Jack opted to sleep with my father and our faithful dog, Max. Meanwhile, I shared a bed with my mother, reminiscing about childhood stories until we both drifted off to sleep. The following morning, I reluctantly powered on my phone to find an overwhelming number of missed calls and emails from James, over 200 in total. His messages oscillated between harsh criticisms and desperate pleas for forgiveness, leaving me unsure of his true intentions. With a heavy heart, I decided to switch off my phone once more. In the afternoon, my lawyer arrived, and we delved into the details of my situation, reaffirming my resolve to proceed with the divorce. After thorough discussions, we officially signed the necessary paperwork, and my lawyer assured me he would meet with James the following day. 2 days later, the lawyer returned to my parents' house, and I eagerly inquired about the outcome. To my surprise, it transpired that Jennifer had a severe shopping addiction and frequented male strip clubs, borrowing a substantial sum of money from loan sharks with James as her guarantor. Their plan was to utilize my savings to repay the debt. When repayment was delayed, James confessed but expressed his desire for reconciliation, hoping for Jack and me to return. However, I remained steadfast in my decision to divorce, having already initiated the legal process. James, distraught, asked the lawyer if I could marry someone else. Despite his reluctance to let go, the lawyer affirmed my freedom to pursue future relationships. It was a difficult moment, witnessing James's emotional breakdown as he grappled with the reality of our impending divorce. He finalized the agreement by signing a promissory note to pay Jack $500 in child support each month. With that, the lawyer deemed the matter settled. Later, I received a call from my ex-husband. Our conversation brief but poignant. His once vibrant voice now sounded subdued, speaking with an air of calmness. It dawned on me that he may have believed financially binding me would deter me from seeking divorce, even if I grew to resent him. He confessed to always prioritizing Jennifer, his younger sister, out of a sense of brotherly duty ingrained since childhood. However, he now acknowledged this as a mistake, admitting his jealousy towards Jack, feeling as though I had been taken away from him, despite once loving our son. When he informed me that he and Jennifer had repaid her debts and expressed his intention to reconcile, pleading for me not to remarry, I firmly asserted that my love for him had faded, and there was no chance of reconciliation. Our conversation ended with tears exchanged over the phone as I wished him happiness before he hung up. In the aftermath, I leaned on my parents for support, making arrangements to transfer Jack to a different daycare while reviving my career as a businesswoman. Unable to keep silent any longer, I disclosed everything to my in-laws, who were outraged by the betrayal and resolved to disown James and Jennifer. Now they live together in a modest apartment, their once close sibling bond deteriorating under the strain of their circumstances. As for me, I've chosen to view their plight as a form of personal retribution.
I got married to a man who liked me even though I was fragile and shy. I thought we were happy, but while I was in the hospital, my husband met a beautiful divorced woman. He decided to leave me, saying I didn't work and wanted $800 a month as compensation. He went ahead with the divorce coldly. My name's Michelle, and I quietly work in an office at a real estate company. I've never been particularly interested in real estate or office work. Since I was a kid, I've been physically weak and sometimes end up in the hospital because of my internal organs, though it's not life-threatening. People were worried if I could work, especially with my health issues, but my parents suggested I try office work. I've been managing fine, even with occasional hospital stays. I've been doing well at my job, and my colleagues understand my situation. I met my husband Tony at a social gathering set up by a friend, kind of like a group blind date. I wasn't sure about romance because I thought my fragility would be a problem for anyone. I didn't date much, and before I knew it, I was over 30. My friend encouraged me, saying, "You should find someone who understands you, Michelle. Your condition doesn't affect your daily life much. Let's stay positive." So she invited me to an event. I didn't think it would work out. There were 3 men, one of whom I liked, but he seemed interested in another woman. I didn't feel particularly attractive, and the other women there seemed prettier. I had given up on finding someone there, but then Tony, who later became my husband, approached me. He was thoughtful, offering me soft drinks since I didn't drink much. But as I listened to him, I realized he wasn't the one I wanted to be close to. I dreamed of marrying someone like a top actress. Hearing his confidence made me wonder about him and even feel a bit repelled. However, despite that, he kept talking to me. He asked, "What kind of guy do you like, Michelle? Do you want to get married?" Because I was eager to get married soon, Tony kept talking to me, showing persistence. At first, I thought he was shallow, but we exchanged contacts. Surprisingly, Tony kept contacting me frequently, even asking me out. Gradually, my feelings for him grew. However, I was still worried. Why would a man with high standards and a seemingly shallow nature be interested in someone like me? When I shared my concerns about my fragile health with a friend, they explained that guys often want to appear strong and impressive at first. Despite that, my friend said Tony really seemed to like me. Believing this, I started to see Tony differently, and we grew closer. Eventually, we got married, and our first year together was truly happy. We lived in a spacious and affordable apartment that I found. Interestingly, my health issues almost disappeared, and I didn't have to go to the hospital while I was with Tony. Maybe being with him helped improve my health. Tony was considerate, and I felt confident that marrying him was the right decision. However, after a year, I started noticing changes in Tony's attitude towards me despite my weak health. ChatGPT. I managed to do basic housework, and I always cooked meals. Tony used to praise my cooking, which made me happy. But gradually, he stopped complimenting and even started complaining about the food. He'd say things like, "Is the soup a bit bland today?" Or, "I'm not really in the mood for meat today." I'm not great at cooking, so making the same tasty meal every day is tough. But until then, he never complained. Also, I can't guess what Tony wants to eat unless he tells me. I was shocked when he said he wasn't in the mood for something. Still, I loved Tony and wanted to meet his expectations. However, his attitude towards me got worse. When he came home from work, he used to cheerfully greet me with, "I'm home. Worked hard today." But he stopped doing that and instead said, I'm tired. I want to do something fun, showing no interest. Our habit of going out on days off also disappeared. When I suggested going somewhere, he'd coldly reply, I'm too tired to go anywhere. If you want to go, go by yourself. His behavior seemed odd, and I started feeling my health deteriorating again. It's like my body reflected my growing anxiety. Then Tony started coming home late from work and going out with friends on his days off, saying he wanted to rest. I'll be back soon, disregarding me entirely. This behavior went beyond just being odd. It started to breed distrust in me. At the same time, my physical condition began to resemble the times I had health issues in the past. If this continued, I would end up hospitalized again, and I wanted to avoid that. Hospital stays usually last about 2 weeks, something I'd rather avoid, so I wanted to talk to Tony about our situation. One day when he returned from an errand, I asked him honestly, Hey, you've been acting strange, haven't you? You're cold towards me. Have you started to dislike me? If you have something to say, say it. Otherwise, I'll go crazy. But he, perhaps drunk, bluntly spoke his true feelings to me, saying, I'm not doing anything with you. I haven't started to hate you, but I don't love you anymore. Are you misunderstanding something? I dated you and even married you, you know. Besides, your income is low. I'm just stressed because there's nothing fun to do. He spoke in a detached manner. His clear and blunt words left me speechless and caused deep emotional hurt. The anger and sadness that followed were overwhelming. It was as if he didn't care about me anymore. Essentially, he had reluctantly dated and married me. This reminded me of when we first met at the mixer. I realized he had his sights on another woman, which he showed interest in another man. He turned to me, the leftover one. I thought his eagerness to marry was genuine, and I was his only viable option at that time. My fears about him being frivolous and not serious about someone like me were confirmed. As these thoughts raced through my mind, my health worsened. There was one thing I wanted to correct in Tony's words, but I no longer felt the need or desire to say it. Not wanting Tony's care, I called my workplace to inform them of my impending episode and took a taxi to the hospital. After a 2-week stay, I returned home still uncertain about how to proceed with Tony. But upon my return, he said something completely unexpected. Oh, you're back. Did you get some rest? I was surprised. I knew you were weak, but I didn't expect you to be hospitalized. His way of speaking showed no concern for me at all. Thinking back, he never visited me once while I was in the hospital. True, I hadn't mentioned frequent hospitalizations when we were dating, and this was my first hospitalization since we had been together. Maybe that's why he reacted this way. But his shocking statements were yet to come. But taking it easy in the hospital, that's a nice life, huh? Earning so little and still taking time off. Naturally, your income will decrease. I don't want to continue this boring life anymore. I'm done. A wife who doesn't work is worthless. Let's get a divorce. Tony said this without any remorse. I was dumbstruck by his sudden declaration. Then he added, Actually, I decided something while you were in the hospital. I decided to marry this woman. He showed me a photo on his smartphone of a very beautiful woman, his new girlfriend. It confirmed what I always knew. He likes beautiful women. This woman is my childhood friend. I was surprised at how beautiful she's become when we met by chance recently. He grinned as he explained this to me. Moreover, regarding our separation, he said, The reason for the divorce is your fault. I'm the victim because I have a wife who doesn't work. So you should pay me compensation of $800 a month. It's your punishment for using me for so long. He expected me to pay despite thinking my income was low and him, the victim. How twisted could his thinking be? I was shocked to face such a situation soon after returning from the hospital, but I quickly regained my composure and honestly thought, this means I can separate from him right away. Deep down, I had already reached this conclusion. It's best to part ways with him. But divorcing so soon after getting married. Surprisingly, I was conscious of what others would think. However, his current behavior was a wake-up call. I decided to accept his demands, so I took out the divorce papers I had prepared earlier, signed my name, and handed them to him. All right, if you have a new fiancé, I understand. Here are the divorce papers. Sign them quickly, I said. He looked surprised for once and said, Oh, that was quick. Sometimes you do think. Now we can get divorced. He signed the papers, reading and handed them back to me, saying, Don't forget about the compensation. Start transferring it by the end of this month. Then he went back to his room. He must have been surprised. He didn't expect me to comply so easily. But I had been contemplating divorce anyway. It was just a matter of time. However, I hadn't accepted everything he said. Compensation, that's another story which he'll realize later. A week or so after moving out of the house I shared with Tony, my health was stable, and I was going about my daily life. After work one day, I checked my phone and saw over 200 missed calls from an unknown number. What? Over 200 missed calls? When I opened the history, Tony's name was listed repeatedly. Seeing this, I couldn't help but feel relieved because I knew why he had been calling. When I called him back, his panic was obvious. Hey, I got a demand for $50,000 in compensation. That's too much, don't you think? But how could he not understand without an explanation? Well, you were cheating on me with your fiancée. While we were still married, right? Was her name Hillary Johnson? She's really beautiful, isn't she? He was flustered when I mentioned her name. What are you talking about? More importantly, how do you know her name? The answer was simple. Why do I know? Because I hired a detective. Your actions were obviously suspicious, so I decided to ask for a little help. They contacted me right away, saying it was a definite case. They even showed me proof photos. According to the latest information, you had her stay over at our house just 3 days ago. Right, by the way, I filed for divorce the day before yesterday, so we were still married 3 days ago. Telling him this, he looked like he was about to explode. He had demanded compensation from me, but this was why I refused to accept that part. Detectives are amazing, but they sure cost a lot of money. When I mentioned that, he nervously asked, "That's true, but you don't have that kind of money, do you?" But that was just his misconception. Indeed, my salary as an office worker wasn't significant, but now I'm ready to reveal the truth. I wanted to counter when he called me low income, but I do have about $400,000 in rental income. The reason being, my father is the president of the real estate company. I work for the company passed down from my great-grandfather, which owns roughly 100 buildings and apartments. My father put several of those properties in my name, perhaps his way of showing love. So, the rent from those properties goes into my account. However, he always told me to do my best in my office job. Tony always assumed I was just a weak, low-income office worker but was quite shocked to learn the truth. Seriously, you should have said that earlier. He realized he had let go of a big fish. If he had treasured me, he could have had a lot of fun, but his misfortune didn't end there. So, the apartment you're living in now is actually mine. I just picked it because it was vacant. That's why there was no rent, but if you continue living there, the rent is $2,000 a month. Looks like your entire monthly salary is going to be gone. He always claimed I was low income, but his salary wasn't great either. That's why I chose one of my properties for him. Now it might be too late to tell him. And then another tragedy struck him. The beautiful fiancée, Hillary, apparently got to know the truth. It seems she was being claimed for compensation as his affair partner, and naturally, the engagement was called off, and she disappeared from Tony's life. Tony, having spent his meager salary and even borrowed money to impress Hillary, ended up with nothing in the end. It's a result of his arrogance and lack of effort, thinking he could land a big catch without trying. As a result, Tony lost his wife, his home, and his new fiancée in an instant. All that remained was his considerable debt. Finally, he said to me, "Hey, let's give it another try. You're the one for me, after all." Such a desperate statement. But without it, he would have an even more boring life than before. However, as far as I'm concerned, he no longer means anything to me. But you would say you were just with me because you had no choice, right? Don't worry about me. I'll be fine, I replied casually and decided to end the call. His calls continued, but they were so annoying that I blocked his number. Since then, he has been evicted from the apartment and lives in a shabby place, struggling with debt. He works from morning till night, but another hardship hit him. Hillary's acquaintances, tough-looking guys, found out where he lived and started threatening him. You're going to pay the compensation she's being charged with too. While their methods are forceful, what they say isn't unreasonable. After all, Hillary was deceived. Thus, Tony's debt only grew. Now he's so dispirited that no one wants anything to do with him. As for me, I'm in good health, free from major stress. The episodes have stopped, and overcoming this huge obstacle has perhaps made me mentally stronger. My office work no longer suffers, and my parents are happy. Now I focus on not stressing myself and being honest with my feelings. When asked about my next relationship, I think I'll stay away from it for a while. Work has become enjoyable, and I find it fulfilling. Before thinking about romance, I planned to travel, something I couldn't do before due to my health concerns. Hi, I'm Heather, and I'm 23 years old. A couple of years ago, I got married to the person I adore. Despite my husband being French, our relationship was smooth sailing except for the language difference. To bridge the gap and connect better with him and his family, I took up learning French without them knowing. It was my way of showing how much I cared for them. My husband, Frederick, and his mom, Avril, had no clue about my secret language lessons. I not only learned French but also became quite good at it through hard work and practice. I reached a point where I felt confident enough that I could survive in France if I had to. You might wonder why my husband doesn't know about my skills. Truthfully, I was a bit shy. Speaking someone's native language can be intimidating, especially when you're always around them. But I finally decided it was time to overcome my shyness. I stopped speaking French with both my husband and my mother-in-law because the whole point was to improve communication, right? It turned out to be fortunate that I hadn't started speaking French with them yet, because one day I overheard a conversation that led to some unexpected events. Hi Mom, how are you today? Thanks for inviting me over on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. It's our pleasure, dear. Hello Mom. Hello my dear. How are you? Thanks for having me. Don't mention it. You're always welcome here. I brought some croissants and what do you Americans call them? Bagels. Yes, bagels and croissants for our afternoon tea. How thoughtful. Thank you. Please, come and sit, Mom. The food will be ready soon. Did she cook? No, I did most of the prep work. Don't worry. I was relieved to hear that, though I couldn't help but wonder what she meant by it. However, I was too shy to ask. It was odd because Avril usually enjoyed my cooking. I figured maybe she just wanted her son's cooking that day, something familiar. Then I overheard her saying, I can't stand her cooking. Why did you even invite me over? We should have gone to a cafe to avoid her. Mom, remember we agreed to speak English so Heather doesn't feel left out? Oh, I'm sorry, dear. I was just saying the food looks delicious. I was surprised to find out that it was my husband who cooked. I wish it was your cooking. I always love your food. This left me baffled. How could she say those mean things in French and then lie to me in English? I started to doubt my translation, but I had a plan to confirm my suspicions. Don't worry, you can speak French if you prefer. It's your language after all. I'll be okay. I decided to use the Google Translate app to record her conversation to ensure I understood correctly. At this point, I doubted my translation skills. As we all sat down to eat, what I heard next shocked me. I want to discuss our plan. The time is nearing. It's practically tomorrow, Frederick. You need to be serious. The app, along with my understanding of French, confirmed that there was indeed a plan being discussed. But Mom, not now. I said I'll handle it. Heather, my dear, what are you going to tell her? Could you pass me the sugar, please? She doesn't know anything about the plan. I was just going to tell her I'll be out of town. Out of town? Why? I was utterly confused by what was happening. Despite my confusion, I stayed composed, not revealing that I could hear their conversation, so I could strategize my next move. Yes, Mom, I understand. I'll take care of it. I know how crucial this is. It's incredibly important. If your great-uncle doesn't see us tomorrow, he might give the house to someone else, like your cousin or aunt. We can't let that happen. No one should know about this house. Oh, Mom, you have such a sense of humor. Don't worry, I was just speaking English so Heather wouldn't suspect anything. Heather? Suspect what? Oh, sorry, dear. I was just asking who made this delightful tea. It's wonderful. That would be your talented son. I'm not as skilled as he is in these matters. Oh, darling, your cooking is fantastic. Terribly fantastic, Mom. She might catch on. No, she won't. She's too clueless to understand us. I'm not so sure, Mom. She probably understands some basics, I think. Let's test it, Heather. How much French do you know? At that moment, I realized I had to play dumb and pretend I didn't understand anything, allowing them to reveal more of their intentions and true nature. I'm still pretty terrible at French. I only know basic phrases like bonjour and comment tout appels. Oh, that won't do, dear. You should learn more French. Yes, ma'am. I'll work on it. Well, at least it's convenient for Frederick and me so we can gossip about you. I'm just joking, my dear. We would never do that to you. Isn't that what we're doing now? Yes, And that's what makes it even funnier. They laughed while I continued recording the conversation with Google Translate. As I did, I also checked various apps, websites, and forums to verify the accuracy of what they were saying. After cross-referencing, I found about 90% confirmation, confirming my initial suspicions. Now that I realized they didn't have much regard for me and were openly mocking me, I knew I had to gather more information. Their insults were like slow cuts, but what I heard next shook me to my core. As I was saying, this house is crucial. No one else can know about it. Understand? We stand to make a lot of money if we keep this to ourselves. I'm relieved we didn't tell my wife about this. I don't want to share the profits with her. Me neither. Everything has to go smoothly. Your great-uncle Pierre made it clear that whoever contacts him first inherits the mansion. We need to get there before anyone else and start renovating. I can't wait to have a house in California. It'll be my escape from my wife and life in Florida. Sometimes I can't stand her. You're still young. You shouldn't be tied down to someone like her at your age. Come live with me in California. Enjoy your youth with women and parties. When you're ready to settle down, you can. Let's leave this place behind. Actually, Mom, I think you're onto something. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Tears welled up in my eyes. Excuse me, is everything all right? Yes, I just need to grab something from the kitchen. I left the room before hearing anything more. I needed a moment to compose myself and avoid causing a scene. How could they say such cruel things with me right there? It was beyond shameful. I was distraught, pacing back and forth in the kitchen. Suddenly, an idea struck me. When I noticed my mother-in-law's purse on the counter, I decided to peek inside and take her phone. Luckily, it was unlocked. I opened her WhatsApp and sent Uncle Pierre's number to mine. Quickly, I deleted the message from her phone, leaving no trace. It was as if instinct guided my actions. I didn't fully understand why I did it, but I felt a sense of empowerment, plotting to retaliate against them for their hurtful words. I re-entered the dining room, where the conversation about their scheme continued. So tomorrow we start our trip. It's well-deserved after all the hard work lately. I agree. We could use a break. Everything all right? Yes, dear. We were just discussing the lovely weather and how perfect it is for a relaxing getaway. Would you like to join? Maybe not today, Freddie. All right. When then? Perhaps tomorrow. I observed closely as both Avril and Frederick tensed slightly, a reaction I anticipated, given what I knew of their plans. Tomorrow might not work. I asked Freddie to assist with some tasks around the house. What tasks? Why so many questions? Just rearranging things. I can lend a hand too, if needed. Not necessary. Do you see how nosy she's being? It's irritating. This is why you need to leave. Don't worry, Mom. I've got it under control. Despite knowing their true thoughts, I maintained a smile, finding solace in the anticipation of the revenge I would soon enact. I continued recording their conversations until the very end, determined to extract every detail. While my French had improved significantly, I still double-checked to ensure accuracy. That night, I stealthily slipped away from the bedroom to the office for further investigation. As I replayed the audio, any doubts about my understanding vanished. From this ordeal, I gleaned that they planned to vacation tomorrow to claim a house from Great-Uncle Pierre, and they harbored resentment towards me, even plotting to leave me. As I paced in the kitchen, leaving my recording phone behind, I inadvertently captured more valuable information. Avril sought Frederick's computer password to alter flight details. I struck gold, obtaining both password and flight information. I had hit the jackpot. I accessed Fred's computer and found the flight details on the website where he booked the tickets. Feeling both sneaky and devious, I may or may not have altered the flight details, postponing their departure to the day after tomorrow. This marked just the beginning of my plans. There was much more to come. With Great-Uncle Pierre's number safely sent to myself, I was prepared to take action. Hello, Uncle Pierre, it's Heather. Oh, hello, dear. How are you? Is everything all right? Well, no, not really. I recounted the day's events in detail, even sending him the audio recording as proof. Without it, I doubted he would believe me. We ended the call so he could listen to the recordings, reconvening once he had finished reviewing everything. I'm at a loss for words. How could Avril and Frederick do this? They were such sweet and innocent people when they were younger. How could they betray you? Me? It's a lot to process. I was just as shocked. You've certainly improved your French. Well done. Thank you, Pierre. But now that we know, what should we do? Well, they won't be getting the house, that's for sure. After hearing all this, I can't in good conscience give such a gift to people planning to destroy it with their greed and foolishness. Understood. It's your house, and you have every right to decide its fate. Absolutely. I'll be ignoring their calls from now on. Let's see how they like that. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. You're a good person, Heather. Don't let the darkness of this world change that. Thank you for your time and courage in sharing this with me. It couldn't have been easy. I admire your strength. Take care of yourself. Uncle Pierre, you too. Good night. With that, I felt assured that Avril and Frederick's downfall was imminent. Now that all the pieces were in place, I only needed to wait for the opportune moment to set things in motion. Returning to the bedroom, I found Frederick still sound asleep. It saddened me to think that my beloved husband could treat me this way. If only we had talked things through, perhaps we could have found a solution. Instead, he chose a path of deceit. I took his phone and disabled his alarm. Without it, he would sleep indefinitely, and that's precisely what happened. I gathered my belongings and decided to spend the night at a hotel. I couldn't bear to stay in the same house with someone like Frederick. The next day was pure chaos. I'm certain Frederick woke up to a barrage of missed calls from his mother, scrambling to pack since he foolishly hadn't done so the day before, and rushing to get to the airport. I received a call from him around 2 p.m. Where are you? Why didn't my alarm go off, and why aren't you here? I decided to take a day off for myself. That's nice. A heads up would have been appreciated though. Likewise, Freddie. What do you mean? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm running late for my flight, my meeting with Mom. Why are you in such a hurry? She wouldn't mind if you were a bit late. You don't understand. Anyway, it's fine. I won't be home tonight or tomorrow night. I have things to take care of. See you later. Before I could respond, he hung up. He was probably too overwhelmed to realize that I had changed his flight details to the next day. Using the Find My iPhone app, I saw him heading to the airport. Imagine rushing out of the house, barely making it to the airport in time, only to discover that your flight had been canceled. I'm sure he was frantic, rushing around the airport. Suddenly, I received a call from Avril. What have you done? What do you mean, Avril? I know you changed our flight. If you mean I changed the date, then yes, I did. Why? I thought I was helping. You mentioned needing Freddie's help with something today. When I saw the flight booked for today, I figured I'd adjust it. You're welcome, Frederick. Come talk to your wife before I reach through the phone and throttle her. Heather, stop whatever you're doing. Uncle Pierre still isn't answering. Try again. He's not answering because he doesn't want to talk to you too. You understand us? Every word? But how? I warned you, Mom. I said she might understand. So you heard everything yesterday? Yes. Here's what's happening. I'm divorcing your useless son and leaving you too. Have a nice day. Oh, and next time you want to gossip about someone in their presence, make sure they don't understand. Goodbye. I ended the call before they could respond. I had enough of their drama. Later that day, Uncle Pierre called. Hello, dear. How are you holding up? I'm a bit shaken. I just had a terrible argument with Fred and Avril, and now I'm divorcing Fred. I'm sorry things turned out this way, Heather. It's part of life, I suppose. How are you feeling? Well, I finally confronted them, and they're not happy about it. What'd you say? I told Fred he's foolish for mistreating you, and I called Avril out for involving her son in her schemes. And I told them I'd given you the house. You did what? Yes, dear, the mansion is yours. Even if you divorce Fred, it's yours to share with whoever you choose. I'm speechless. It's overwhelming. I wanted the house to go to someone kind, resilient, and compassionate. That's you. It's the least I could do after all they put you through. Take it. And just like that, not only did I rid myself of two toxic individuals who didn't truly care about me, but I also acquired a multi-million-dollar mansion. Watching me gain the house they coveted so much drove Avril and Frederick into a frenzy. They bombarded me with death threats daily, but I simply replied with pictures of different parts of the house. A subtle reminder that it belonged to me, not them. Revenge had never felt so satisfyingly luxurious. This time, let your brother have a baby. You can have another one later. I told my parents I was pregnant. Then my mom said something shocking. Zach and his wife Rosie, who can't have kids, want us to give them our baby for adoption. My parents always favored Zach and ignored me. The happy future I imagined with my first baby turned into sadness. I'm Olivia. I've been married to Walt for 3 years. We're happy and thinking about having a baby soon. But I haven't been close to my family because of issues with my parents and brother Zach. In our family house, my parents, Zach, and his wife Rosie all live together. Zach has been praised since he was little, excelling in school and landing a job at a big company, which he'll probably take over from Dad. Our parents have always adored him. I, on the other hand, didn't stand out academically and wasn't as good looking, so I never felt that close to our parents. I often felt left out and lonely because Zach got so much attention. Mom especially favored him, always by his side and hardly ever paying attention to me. When she did talk to me, it was usually criticism. Zach followed Mom's lead and didn't treat me well either, so we never really got along. I felt like I didn't belong at home and became more and more isolated. Because of that, right after finishing high school, I moved out. My parents didn't seem bothered when I told them I was leaving. If anything, they seemed happy about it. After leaving, I found a job, and 3 years later, I married Walt, who was in the same class as me. I wanted to start my own family and find peace away from my parents' influence. I only go back home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I don't really want to, but my parents insist. They care a lot about appearances, and it wouldn't look good if their daughter never visited. So I put up with it and visit twice a year. I reluctantly went back this Thanksgiving, but my mother was as distant as ever. "You and your husband are still not that impressive," she said, dampening the festive atmosphere. She started being sarcastic right away. She only called us back to say such things. If she's going to be like this, she shouldn't even bother calling, I thought, trying to ignore her sarcasm. But she kept going. "We're worried about you. You two live so modestly. We always think you'll come asking for money. My family is pretty wealthy, but since I left, I've never asked for financial help. Walt and I manage fine on our own earnings. We even send them proper birthday gifts." "We would never do that," I quickly replied to her unfounded accusation. Then she said, "But you two are still earning modestly, right?" and turned to look at Walt next to me. "Walt, you're still at that detective agency, right? How long do you plan to stick with that questionable job? Aren't you embarrassed?" Indeed, Walt works as a detective, something she always mocks. She sees detective work as sketchy and inferior to regular jobs. As Walt tried to explain his job to her, Zach jumped in. "Mom, there's no point in even listening to that. Detective work is shady, something nobody respectable does. It's a job for people beneath us. The pay must be peanuts compared to mine," showing off his superiority. Zach shared her disdain for detective work, a sentiment we've heard since we got married. Walt stayed quiet, but I felt upset that his job was being dismissed outright. Walt has always been my support, understanding what my family is like since our college days. That's why he always joins me when we visit my parents, not wanting to leave me alone, even though he knows it won't be pleasant. I still feel guilty about it. Like many visits before, this one ended on a sour note. Around that time, we decided to live modestly together, unaffected by my family's opinions. Something amazing happened in our 3rd year of marriage. I found out I was pregnant. I was thrilled to be expecting our first child. Knowing how my parents always put me down, I felt like I had to share the news with them, so I went to our family home to tell them. It had been a while since I visited outside of Thanksgiving and Christmas, and my parents, Zach, and his wife Rosie were all there, but their reaction to my announcement caught me off guard. When my mother heard the news, she suddenly got loud. "How could you say that in front of Zach?" Her response was unexpected. I wasn't expecting congratulations, but this was different. I was confused by her mentioning Zach, and when I looked puzzled, she dropped a bombshell. "Zach and Rosie can't have kids. How could you be so insensitive?" I had no clue they were dealing with infertility. Shocked by her words, I glanced at them. Zach seemed uncomfortable, and Rosie looked down sadly. "You're having a baby before Zach. If it wasn't for Rosie, this wouldn't be happening." My mother sighed dramatically, looking between Rosie and me. Seeing this, Zach stepped in. "Rosie already feels bad enough. Don't be too hard on her, Mom." I was surprised to hear him defend Rosie. From what I knew from my visits, Zach wasn't usually that supportive of her. "You're really kind, Zach." Then Zach said something that made me pause. "Rosie, if it weren't for being married to Zach, you would have been divorced by now. My mother shot Rosie a glare. Maybe despite everything, Zach does care about his wife. As I watched Zach calm our mother down, I thought about what had just happened. Well, I shared my news, so I should head home, I said, feeling the tension rise because of my announcement. But then my mother said something unbelievable. Give your baby to Zach. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Give my baby to Zach. Why should I? I can have another baby if I want to. Just because Rosie can't have children doesn't mean I should give mine away. That's unfair and ridiculous. When I refused, my mother argued, this is our first grandchild. It should be raised by us. Zach will take over the company, so we should raise the baby. Her words made me furious. She was planning to take my unborn child just to ensure a successor for our father's company. She talked about adoption like she had it all planned out, but I was too angry to listen. I was already irritated, and then Zach said something shocking. Well, since Rosie can't have kids, it's good for her that you got pregnant. You're finally doing something for the family. I couldn't believe it, but Zach seemed to agree with my mom. Even Dad, who usually stays quiet, nodded along. It felt like the whole family was claiming my baby as their own. I couldn't believe how casually Zach spoke to his own wife like that, acting like it was no big deal. I realized there was no point in arguing further, so I left right away. All they said was, give us an answer next time you come, and didn't even come to say goodbye. Rosie, who must have been hurt, silently watched me leave. Even after I got home, I couldn't shake off my anger. Instead of celebrating my pregnancy, they made this unreasonable demand. I felt gloomy thinking about the future. They'd probably keep pushing for adoption even after the baby was born. When I told Walt what happened after he got back from work, he was shocked too. Even he couldn't find the words to respond. He knows my family, but this was beyond belief. A few days later, we were surprised by an unexpected visitor at home. What brings you here all of a sudden? It's rare to see you alone, I said to Rosie. She looked tired, with dull skin and messy hair. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at us. Olivia, I'm really sorry about what happened the other day, she said, referring to when I announced my pregnancy. It wasn't her fault, but she seemed burdened by the unreasonable demands my family had made. Then she said she had something important to discuss. What is it? I asked, inviting her in to talk. What she told me was shocking, and my anger flared up again. Trying to stay calm, she shared a significant truth with me. Walt had been quietly listening to our conversation, and then chimed in with something equally astonishing and infuriating. Rosie's tears started again as she listened to Walt. With this new information from both of them, I made a decision. I vowed to myself to hold my parents and Zach accountable, to settle past grievances and seek justice. 3 months later, with my belly starting to show, Walt and I visited my family home. My parents, Zach and Rosie, were there. Without even a greeting, my mother asked, "You've decided to give the baby to Zach, right?" It seemed like she couldn't think of anything else. As I said before, that's not happening. I replied, but my parents glared at me as if they couldn't accept it. No matter what you say, we're taking that baby. Stop being stubborn, my mother said, clearly angered by my refusal. Zach and my father just watched, not intervening. No matter how much you insist, I'll never give the baby away. But I came here today to show you something. Is that okay, Rosie? I asked, looking at Rosie, who nodded silently. Rosie intends to divorce Zach, and this is why. I pulled out some photos from an envelope I had brought. That was the reason for my visit today. Zach was speechless as he looked at the photos. They clearly showed him kissing another woman and entering a hotel. Undeniable proof of his infidelity. Shocked to have been caught, he muttered. Who took these photos? Our parents, standing next to Zach, looked bewildered, their gaze shifting between him and me. They probably had no idea about his affair. It was Walt who took these, I said. Walt, who had been silently observing, explained how he had come across the photos. As a detective, he had seen Zach with another woman while working on a case. Out of curiosity, he investigated further and found out about Zach's affair. The decisive moment was captured in those photos, as Zach thought he had cleverly hidden his affair. He was stunned and speechless. Adultery is grounds for divorce. You need to compensate Rosie properly, I said, breaking the tense silence. But Zach, instead of apologizing, blamed Rosie for his actions. Yeah, it's your fault, Rosie. You're so incompetent. I'm just having a little fun outside, he said, with our mother backing him up, trying to shift the blame away from Zach. Seeing Rosie treated like I once was made me feel terribly sorry for her. So I decided to confront my family to save both of us. I pushed them further by pointing out Zach's faults. Zach, you mocked Walt, but a professional detective's skills are extraordinary. Evidence kept piling up as soon as he started investigating. And we found out something shocking about your mistress, I said, watching my parents tense up, wondering what would come next. The woman you're seeing seems to be the daughter of a mafia boss, I revealed, watching Zach freeze in shock. He must not have known that. My mother screamed. What? Is that true? Upon hearing the revelation, she collapsed to the ground, covering her face, while my father looked terrified. Zach, you were pretending to be single, right? I asked, and Zach started to panic. No, I didn't know either. Our parents, who had been so authoritative just moments ago, were now completely bewildered by this unexpected revelation. Then Rosie spoke up amidst the confusion. You didn't just deceive your mistress, did you? Her words brought tension back into the room. She repeated what she had told me during her visit. You're infertile, aren't you? Zach's face betrayed a look of realization. Our parents stared at him in shock. They had blamed Rosie for their infertility issues, but the truth was it was Zach himself. Did you know, Rosie? That was all he could manage to say. Our stunned parents struggled to find their next words, visibly shaken by the revelation. Rosie delivered the final blow. I found out accidentally while cleaning the room. She had stumbled upon his infertility diagnosis hidden in his desk drawer. Unable to admit it to his loving parents, Zach had kept this fact a secret and blamed Rosie for their infertility. Believing his words, our parents had unfairly blamed Rosie. His protective comments about Rosie when I announced my pregnancy were probably driven by his guilt over the issue. Blamed for something she had no control over, Rosie suffered every day. As the conversation turned to the topic of taking my child, Rosie spoke with a calm, unchanged expression. Meanwhile, my parents, just learning the shocking truth, were in a panic. To think Zach will never have a child, that's just, my mother began, despairing at the thought of not having a grandchild. But then she turned her hysterical anger towards him. You knew it was your fault, yet you blamed your wife. Did you cheat because you knew you were infertile? How could my son stoop so low? Oh dear, why did this happen? She vented her frustration at him. Finally, Zach spoke, offering a pitiful explanation. I was shocked to find out I was infertile. I felt guilty for not giving you a grandchild. When I found out Olivia was pregnant with a boy, it just seemed convenient. His words filled me with contempt. Pushing aside my anger, I delivered the final blow to the three of them. Your selfish actions hurt Rosie and me. And Zach, you had an affair with such a dangerous person. Mom and Dad, you'll have to face the consequences of your actions. You've hurt so many people, now it's time to face the music. My words prompted them to apologize, their earlier bravado gone. Where did that confidence go when you asked me to give up my son? I looked at them with disdain, feeling as though I was looking at garbage. Beside me, Rosie remained silent, her gaze fixed ahead, silently conveying the depth of her sorrow. Tough times lay ahead for Zach and my parents. When the father of Zach's mistress discovered the affair, they were summoned and forced to apologize repeatedly. Despite ending the affair, Zach had to pay a hefty compensation for deceiving the woman. The amount was staggering, teaching them the harsh consequences of getting involved with such people. As a result, our family home descended into chaos. My father had to step down as company president due to the public scandal, and my mother became isolated, shunned by the neighbors, and withdrawing into herself. Their relationship became hostile, constantly arguing over Zach's actions. Zach lost his job after the scandal reached his company, and to add to his troubles, his divorce with Rosie was finalized. Struggling with unemployment and financial burdens, Zach found himself trapped in a cycle of relentless work. Around the time Rosie successfully left the family home, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Both the baby and I were in good health, and I reveled in the joy of welcoming new life. Our family of three embarked on happy days together. Eventually, Walt and I made the decision to sever all ties with my family. Although I have been torn about cutting off contact with my parents and brother, that incident made me realize it was the best decision for my son's well-being. Despite their absence, I have found solace and love in my irreplaceable family. From now on, I choose to cherish only my precious family.
I recently became a parent. Jessica, the person who took Michael away from me by pretending to be pregnant, sent me a message demanding a $5,000 baby shower gift. Even though I've moved on and remarried, Jessica's presence still bothers me. Despite being my sister, she hasn't changed and continues to cause trouble without any concern. John, a friend, suggested we attend the celebration, and I reluctantly agreed, trusting that he has a plan to deal with Jessica's antics. While Jessica may find it amusing now, I believe she'll face consequences for her actions soon. As for me, my name is John Johnson, and I work as an office assistant in a local company. Shifting to a different story, I've been dating someone since my college days. I met Michael Smith, a medical student, through club activities. He comes from a family of allergy specialists, and his father's clinic is well known across the country. Initially, I thought Michael was just a smart and wealthy guy due to his family background. But as we got to know each other, I discovered his uniqueness. We bonded over our shared interest in a film director's work, and my initiative to invite him to a movie paid off. He began to see me as someone special. Our relationship extended beyond college, and Michael proposed when I was 25. He shared his aspiration to become a great doctor, eventually taking over his dad's clinic. Excitedly, he asked me to be part of this journey with him, and I gladly accepted. Pregnant shortly after our wedding, I was elated, believing Michael would be an excellent father. The baby's health was my primary concern, regardless of gender. However, my joy turned to despair when severe morning sickness hit me hard. Constant nausea forced me to resign from my job, and I found solace in eating to combat the sickness. The house became a mess with snack wrappers and bread bags scattered around. Returning home one day, Michael expressed his disappointment about the chaotic state of our home and my apparent weight gain. I explained that the morning sickness compelled me to eat constantly. Instead of empathy, he cruelly compared me to a pig that had given up on staying slim, laughing mockingly at my struggle. Shocked by his insensitivity, I clung to the hope that he would return to his kind self after the baby's birth, but that hope too would soon be shattered. One day, my sister Jessica paid a visit. "Hey, Naomi, you're here. Place looks a bit chaotic though. Sorry about the mess." "No worries. I'm used to it. It's like a second home." Jessica, my sister, appeared before me, worn out and struggling with morning sickness. Despite her occasional visits, I was too unwell to entertain her properly. Hoping for a distraction, I started a conversation, sharing the news that it seemed the baby in my belly was a girl. "Wow, didn't know you were already thinking about dressing up and shopping. Does Michael know?" "Yep, it's going to be a girl," I told Michael right away. "I dream of wearing matching outfits with my child." "Jessica, you've always been stylish. I'll count on your advice when the time comes." Jessica turned around, smiling meaningfully. "That's right. Michael is still a rookie doctor, but he'll eventually take over the family clinic." "Stop it, Jessica. That's too harsh. You really have a sharp tongue." Jessica is sarcastic and sometimes hits hard with her words. As her younger sister, I've grown used to it, but it can be tough when I'm unwell. Jessica quickly switched back to her usual smile. "Sorry, slipped into my usual mode. So, Naomi, anything bothering you lately?" "Well, Michael's been coming home late. As a doctor, it's unavoidable. But he's at the hospital all the time, even on weekends. We hardly have time to talk these days." "I see. Not surprising for someone claiming to be a doctor's wife like you." Jessica's icy smile sent a chill down my spine. "Why, I came to talk to you today." As she spoke, Jessica glanced toward the living room door, and entering from there was Michael. "Michael, did you finish work early at the hospital today? We need to talk. Let's get a divorce." "What kind of joke is this? What do you mean?" As soon as I returned home, Michael's words confused me. I knew he wasn't the type to make a terrible joke, especially given our long relationship since college and the fact that I was carrying his child. "Look, your beloved husband is saying this. You should listen to his request and let go quickly." Jessica's shocking statement left me in disbelief. Michael awkwardly looked at me. "I can't see you as a woman anymore after you kept eating and gaining weight." But this is morning sickness. I feel sick if I don't eat. Jessica triumphantly stared at me. That's the way it is. And the baby in your belly, being a girl, won't be the heir to the Smith Clinic. But I carried Michael's child in my belly, a suitable heir. I felt a sinking feeling as Jessica lovingly stroked her belly. I'm 3 months pregnant, and it's a boy, according to the tests. You can't be serious. I just had a baby. What are you doing while I'm going through all this pain? Your excuses, quitting your job, and just eating all the time are unacceptable. I'm tired of watching you lying around, constantly eating snacks. I take care of myself, so I don't have morning sickness, even when pregnant. I won't lose my self-control and eat like a pig, unlike you. I was at a loss for words, seeing Jessica's smug face, and Michael looking down at the floor, guilt-ridden. While I didn't know about Jessica being pregnant with a boy, as an heir, I wanted a son. I value a beautiful wife like Jessica over someone who indiscriminately gains weight. Isn't that just a desire for an heir, while a beautiful wife is your own selfish preference? I'll pay alimony, so let's part without any fuss. Witnessing Michael's apology, I realized that our relationship could never return to its former state. Following the divorce, I became a single mother and gave birth to our daughter. Unfortunately, Michael's promise of alimony turned out to be mere words with no actual financial support. After childbirth, I had to work to make ends meet since I had no one to rely on. Unsure of my options, I took a job at a nearby department store that was hiring. Life took an unexpected turn, and my hard work and character caught the attention of John Johnson, a highly regarded manager in the external sales department. Tough day. You're always working hard. Thanks. I'm about to finish up soon. Are you done for the day, John? Yeah. Oh, there's this great Italian place nearby. I want you to try, Naomi. And it's a little gift for your daughter. Through casual conversations, our connection grew, leading to dating and eventually our remarriage. Naomi, I might be a guy 20 years older than you, but I sincerely want to make you and your daughter happy. Will you marry me? Are you sure about me? I'd be delighted. Life after remarriage was truly blissful. A kind husband, and my daughter and I enjoyed a peaceful life. However, I failed to notice the ominous footsteps approaching our tranquil days. One day, while Jan was at work and I had some time off, an email arrived. It was from Jessica, and the content was shocking. A baby is born. I'm expecting a $5,000 baby shower gift. A gasp escaped me as I read that abrupt email. Memories flooded back from 5 years ago when Jessica had an affair with Michael and took him away. Now asking for a $5,000 baby shower gift, seemed excessive. I couldn't forget that day, the expressions on Jessica and Michael's faces, their disregard for my suffering from morning sickness, was unforgivable. Uncertain about how to respond to Jessica's email, John returned from work, sensing something was amiss. Concerned, he asked, "What's wrong, Naomi? You look pale." "Oh, John, it's a message from my sister. She had a baby. The sister who married your ex-husband, Michael." "Yeah, I don't want to see her face or hear from her. Plus, she's asking for a $5,000 baby shower gift." As John listened and glanced at my phone, he suddenly said, "Wait. This Jessica Smith name, you know her? I didn't mention her when we got married because I didn't want to remember." "Yeah, I've never been introduced to her by you, but I wonder." John, contemplating while looking at the email, seemed to recall something. "We didn't properly greet her during our wedding, so let's visit her now. Also, I just remembered something I needed to do back at the department store." He quickly prepared to leave. "Going back to the department store now. Sorry, there's something I need to do." A few hours later, John returned with a thick file. "Is it okay if we visit your sister, Jessica, 2 weeks from now on Sunday? We both had the day off, and I'd like her to meet my parents and cousins too." "Your parents and cousins too?" "Jessica loves being the center of attention, so she'll probably be fine." "But why?" "I've heard your ex-husband, Michael, is famous for allergy treatment. My family has a history of allergies, Thought we might get some good advice. I remembered hearing from friends that Michael had taken over his father's allergy clinic. Michael's dad was an authority on allergy treatment, and Michael became an allergist too. A friend told me. Okay, I'll contact Jessica. Jessica quickly agreed when I contacted her. I want to see the baby and will bring a gift. Can I bring some relatives too? They really want to meet you. Of course, the more guests, the more gifts. Looking forward to seeing you in 2 weeks on Sunday. 2 weeks later, on Sunday, I visited Jessica's house with John, his parents, and relatives, including his cousins, in a quiet residential area. Her stylish house stood next to the clinic, its white walls gleaming. John's parents and relatives were surprised by its luxurious design, excited to meet the renowned allergist. Welcome. I've been waiting for you. Long time no see, Jessica. You look happy. Of course, I was worried about my first child's birth, but it all worked out in the end. I felt something off in Jessica's words. First childbirth? Didn't you say you were pregnant with a boy before? Oh, did I not tell you? I miscarried that time, so this is my first. John, standing beside me, nodded meaningfully. Seeing John's face, Jessica started to tremble. Oh, hello. Nice to meet you. Hello, you must be Naomi's sister. I heard a bit about the miscarriage. Yes, but I don't want to remember the miscarriage. Jessica turned her face away in a huff and started to walk off. Sorry about that. Oh, there's something I wanted to give you, Jessica. What? Something for me? Jan handed her an envelope. It's pastel-colored, and the word congratulations written on it, thick enough to be noticeable even from the side. Here you go. I wanted to give this to Jessica personally. Got it right? Just what I've been waiting for. I glanced at John and whispered to him, Hey, we aren't rich, and we don't have to give Jessica the $5,000 she asked for. But John, unfazed, pet me off. It's fine. Trust me. You'll understand if you watch. What do you mean if I watch? While we were talking about the envelope, Jessica had already started opening it. I need to check if it's exactly $5,000. With this thickness, it might even be $10,000. The cute envelope was torn open with a ripping sound. Jessica's face clouded over the moment she opened it. What's this? John stepped forward with a salesperson's smile to explain. Mrs. Jessica Smith, this is a detailed statement of your purchases at the department store over the past 5 years. You said to put it on my tab, and this is the amount you've accumulated to date. What are you talking about? I don't know anything about this. Jessica held a statement listing names of luxury watches and brand bags. Seeing the 5-digit figure in the amount column, I was in disbelief. Indeed, Mr. Michael Smith himself and his parents are valued customers with an external sales card contract. However, with such a high amount, we needed to confirm, just to be sure. My husband is the famous allergist Michael Smith. As the wife of the clinic's director, using 1 or 2 external sales cards is nothing, is that so? Also, there's something else I personally wanted to verify. John paused before continuing. About 5 years ago, we had complaints about a customer flaunting their external sales card and making extremely unpleasant remarks. Do you know anything about this? What's that? What does it matter? Since we had several complaints, I checked with the staff who were nearby at the time. The content of the conversation was so terrible that the staff remembered it clearly. Glancing sideways, I saw Jessica's expression harden. The staff said the conversation was about stealing someone's husband, who happens to be her brother-in-law. Could it be? Yes, that's right. And she bragged about using a fake pregnancy to break them up, laughing loudly. She talked about how she lied about miscarrying like it was some kind of heroic tale. That's when I realized that time. Jessica's claim of being pregnant with a boy, the hair, was all a lie to snatch Michael. Of course, there was no pregnancy, so no morning sickness or changes in her body shape. What are you saying? That story was about me? Matching the complaints with the external sales card, your name, Jessica Smith, came up. I can't believe this. You are marrying into a doctor's family, becoming the clinic director's wife. I couldn't stand it. I had to do whatever it took to tell Michael that I was the right one for him. I couldn't believe that Michael had fallen for Jessica's scheme, and she had lied to marry him. While I was in shock, the door opened. What's this all about? Explain yourself, Jessica. Since when have you been here? From the beginning, I came back to get something I forgot and found the external sales card statement. And now, I hear the pregnancy 5 years ago was all a lie. You trapped me, Michael shouted, and Jessica began to laugh. So what? You got a beautiful wife, and we have a child now, so it's fine, right? Don't joke with me. I can't live with a liar like you. Let's get a divorce. You can't be serious. What about our child? Don't you feel sorry for them? Pushing her away, Michael glared at Jessica with a furious expression. I can't live with a liar and reckless spender like you. It's not good for the child either. We're getting a divorce. I'm taking custody. Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea what I went through to give birth to this child? This child needs to become a doctor in the future to support us. You're just thinking about yourself. There's no point in talking about this now. Let's handle the rest through a lawyer. The relatives who came along hoping to get some effective medicine from the famous allergist were frozen in shock at this chaotic scene. I was so embarrassed to admit that she was my sister. Afterward, Michael got a good lawyer specializing in divorce and successfully got divorced and won custody. Meanwhile, Jessica, who had been shopping to her heart's content on credit using the external sales card during her marriage, was now being chased for repayments. Hey, if your husband hadn't brought that statement, I'd still be the clinic director's wife. I'm being hounded for repayments now. Help your sister out in a pinch, will you? Why should I? You brought this on yourself, didn't you? And you should pay for your own shopping. Unexpectedly, I got a message from Michael via social media. Hey, can we start over? If Jessica hadn't lied about having a boy 5 years ago, we would have been fine as a couple. I want to see our daughter too. I have forgotten how you left me suffering with morning sickness and mocked me, then cheated on me. After 5 years of no contact, the last thing I wanted was to see his face again. Michael seemed to be struggling to keep the clinic he inherited from his father running, but he couldn't stop gossip due to the infidelity rumors. Patients stopped coming to the Smith Clinic, which Michael inherited, had a 1-star rating and unbelievably bad reviews on a hospital review site. It seemed only a matter of time before he would have to close the clinic. He was so fixated on inheriting ironically. He was so obsessed with having a male heir. My husband, daughter, and I continue to live happily as a family. Naomi, are you ready? Shall we head out soon? Yes, I was just remembering how delicious the spaghetti you brought me from that restaurant was back when I was a single mother. Jen used to order from a restaurant for takeout as a way to approach me back then. My daughter was small, and since we weren't dating, we never ate at the restaurant, just as colleagues. You had just gotten divorced and were having a hard time, right? I thought even a little bit of delicious food could bring you happiness. It was your kindness that drew me to you, the dish that brought us together. Back then, it was just my daughter and me eating takeout, but now it's different. I'm happy that we can eat together as a family. Who would have thought that a day like this, going out with you and our daughter, would come?
Starting today, my husband wants us to live with my parents. I was caught off guard by this sudden suggestion. We just said goodbye to my father, who recently passed away after being sick for a long time. Despite the sadness of the funeral still lingering, my husband packed up and left our house. He said we're moving to a villa my father left me. When we got there, my in-laws were already settled in. My name's Natalie, I'm 33, and I'm a designer who's just started living on my own. I've been living with Justin for 3 years now since we got married. My career as a designer is flourishing and I'm known in my field. I earn well enough to have the apartment under my name. Sadly, my mother passed away during my college years, and last year, my father was diagnosed with cancer. Despite his brave fight, the disease progressed, and the doctors warned us to prepare for the worst. My father has always been there for me, especially since I started working. He's been a constant support and a vital part of my life. Learning about my father's illness shook me to the core. As his health deteriorated, I couldn't sleep, consumed by worry and fear. My husband asked about my dad's condition often, but his concern felt hollow. It seemed like he was waiting for the worst to happen. He's always felt insecure about earning less than me, and I wished he'd take pride in my success and be there for me when times get tough. He had a playful side, always wanting to win, even in simple things. My dad assured us not to worry and to focus on our relationship, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we should visit him while we still can. I was finding it harder to hide my growing frustration with my husband. In the beginning, our marriage was full of love and joy, but his insensitive comments about my dad's illness changed things. I realized he wasn't the same loving husband anymore. He works from home and thinks having someone around distracts me, but I plan to work from home too once I'm independent. I decided to rent a small office and commute, making it easier for me to visit the hospital. Meanwhile, my husband stayed home, leaving all the household chores for me to handle. Juggling work, taking care of my father, and coming home exhausted, I often found a mess waiting for me, with dishes left unwashed. It was clear he only thought of himself, disregarding my feelings. Living with him made me realize how little he understood me, leaving me feeling deeply lonely. Then my father passed away. We had already sold our family home as we had discussed with him. As I busied myself with funeral arrangements, my husband seemed distant, more focused on phone calls or disappearing altogether. I pleaded with Justin to help me during this difficult time, but his phone interrupted our conversation. When he finally hung up, he brushed off my request, claiming he was busy with work calls. My frustration with him grew, especially amidst the turmoil of losing my father. His demeanor had turned colder, leaving me feeling even sadder. On the day of the funeral, Justin spent a long time chatting with his parents, leaving me feeling alone among the attendees. Despite the tension, the funeral proceeded smoothly, and we were able to wrap up the proceedings without any major issues. Out of the blue, my husband suggested we move in with his parents, as if it were the most natural thing to do. He even joked about divorce if I disagreed. I couldn't believe how casually he said it, especially considering the recent loss of my father. Fueled by grief and frustration, I retorted, "Live with them where? We don't even have a spare room here." In truth, one room in our apartment served as my husband's workspace, filled with his work stuff. Despite us not having kids, he used the space as if it were his own personal domain. "It's the villa you inherited," he said with a grin. I was taken aback. While we'd sold the family home, the villa held special memories of my father and me. I was determined to keep it that way, but my husband didn't seem to care about my feelings and kept pushing his own agenda. Living in that villa would be tough, I tried to explain, but he brushed it off. His parents had already made plans to move there, likely arranged during the funeral. With its spaciousness and peaceful setting, it was probably an appealing choice for them. Their move was already in motion, leaving no room for me to object. Every time I tried to speak up, my husband's disapproval was evident. "You're always thinking about yourself. Your constant absence because of your father's illness and emergencies has taken a toll on me. Do you even realize how much I've had to endure because of your obsession with your father?" His words were harsh, plunging my world into darkness. "Now that your father is gone, you need to listen to me." His year-long struggle was too much to bear. His callous remarks cut deep, leaving me in disbelief. I didn't want to accept that this was who my husband truly was, but it was clear he had little regard for my father or me. I couldn't shake the memory of my father's pain during his final days in the hospital. My father wouldn't have wanted me to just follow my husband's orders, leaving me behind, and he certainly wouldn't have wanted me to abandon my own feelings. In that moment, any love I had for my husband seemed to disappear. I couldn't shake the feeling of bitterness knowing he was excited about the villa while I was still mourning my father's death. Despite my emotions, I tried to warn him. Living in a villa might not turn out as you expect. I highly doubt that was his response. With that, I had to accept his decision. I packed only the essentials and left our home. My husband looked puzzled at my sparse belongings, but I simply told him, "I'll come back for the rest later." I couldn't bear to exchange any more words with him. It was painful to see the faces of my in-laws, who I imagined were eagerly awaiting my father's death and were now happily moving into the villa. I followed my husband in silence, unable to bear the thought of my cherished place being taken over by his desires. While technically a villa, it's more like a cozy family home by the sea, nestled in a neighborhood where life is simple and peaceful. Despite its tranquil surroundings, it's conveniently close to the city center, making it a valuable piece of property. As I stepped out of the station, memories of my childhood flooded back. I remembered how my father used to carry me home on his back after I fell asleep on the train ride. When we reached the villa, my in-laws were already there. I couldn't shake the feeling of suspicion, realizing that my husband must have secretly given them a key without my knowledge. This discovery only added to my unease. The realization that my in-laws had schemed to move into the villa without informing anyone only deepened my mistrust. As I looked around, I could see the excitement in their eyes as they envisioned their future in this home. Despite being a single-family house, it was filled with sturdy furniture chosen by my father and slightly different European-style decor that must have appealed to my mother. "What a beautiful villa. It's simply perfect," they exclaimed. "Goodbye to that cramped apartment. We're so fortunate to be able to live here now. The view from the second floor is breathtaking. Your father was clever to keep such a wonderful home a secret. We should all enjoy it together, as a family." Their enthusiastic remarks only fueled my irritation. It seemed like they didn't fully grasp the weight of my father's passing and simply saw the villa as a luxurious home they lucked into. Truly, both the location and the house are perfect. "We're lucky your father left us this splendid villa. We owe him our thanks," my husband chimed in, joining his insensitive parents in laughter. They cracked open beers to celebrate the move, oblivious to the solemnity of the occasion. I sighed as I prepared snacks, watching them tarnish the precious memories I had of my parents at the dining table. I chose to bury my feelings and endure the night. The next morning, the tranquility of the villa was shattered by my mother-in-law's piercing scream. I instantly knew something was wrong. As I woke up and hurried to investigate, I found my father-in-law and husband causing a commotion, slightly delayed in reaching the source of the scream. In the bathroom, my mother-in-law lay on the floor, clutching her foot with a panicked look. "The floor collapsed under me," she gasped, clearly shaken by the sudden event. "But the floor seems fine. You must have just slipped, right?" My husband and father-in-law seemed oblivious to the severity of the situation as they examined the spot she indicated. However, the floorboards appeared smooth and undamaged. Despite their reassurances, she remained adamant. "My father wouldn't have wanted me to just follow my husband's orders, leaving me behind. And he certainly wouldn't have wanted me to abandon my own feelings." In that moment, any love I had for my husband seemed to disappear. I couldn't shake the feeling of bitterness knowing he was excited about the villa while I was still mourning my father's death. Despite my emotions, I tried to warn him, "Living in the villa might not turn out as you expect." "I highly doubt that," was his response. With that, I had to accept his decision. I packed only the essentials and left our home. My husband looked puzzled at my sparse belongings, but I simply told him, "I'll come back for the rest later." I couldn't bear to exchange any more words with him. It was painful to see the faces of my in-laws, who I imagined were eagerly awaiting my father's death and were now happily moving into the villa. As they examined the floor, I was certain it had collapsed. "Have you tried stepping on that slightly different colored part of the floor?" I questioned. Their expressions shifted to surprise as they focused on the spot I indicated. Stepping between them, I leaned forward and pressed my slippered foot on the distinct section. Whoa, what was that? The floorboard made a distinct sound and gave slightly under my weight, snapping back into place when I lifted my foot. If someone unknowingly stepped on it, they'd think the floor had collapsed. "See, the floor sinks a bit. It's like a trap," I explained. "What? That's dangerous. Is this house defective?" they exclaimed. Calmly, I clarified, "It's not a defect. My father intentionally installed it in this house." "Why would he do that?" they asked incredulously. "It's what you'd call a mechanical mansion or a trick house," I revealed. As they examined the floor, I was certain it had collapsed. "Have you tried stepping on that slightly different colored part of the floor?" I questioned. Their expressions shifted to surprise as they focused on the spot I indicated. Stepping between them, I leaned forward and pressed my slippered foot on the distinct section. Whoa, what was that? The floorboard made a distinct sound and gave slightly under my weight, snapping back into place when I lifted my foot. If someone unknowingly stepped on it, they'd think the floor had collapsed. "See, the floor sinks a bit. It's like a trap," I explained. "What? That's dangerous. Is this house defective?" they exclaimed. Calmly, I clarified, "It's not a defect. My father intentionally installed it in this house." Why would he do that? They asked incredulously. It's what you'd call a mechanical mansion or a trick house, I revealed. In reality, my father was a devoted ninja enthusiast. This villa was his pride and joy, a treasure he poured his heart and soul into. As a child, I often tagged along while he tinkered with the house's mechanisms or added new ones. That's why there are traps and hidden mechanisms scattered throughout. A shelf you shouldn't touch, a floorboard that gives way when stepped on, a door that requires a specific sequence to open, concealed passageways, and even secret rooms. Every corner of this villa is infused with my father's dreams and ingenuity, cultivated over many years. While it's perfectly suitable for everyday living for me, who grew up here and learned how to navigate all the traps from my father, it's a different story for my husband and in-laws, who are unfamiliar with its quirks. I did warn you that living here would be challenging, and I also mentioned that it's a place filled with my father's memories. My father's intense ninja obsession is pretty well known among her relatives. It's surprising you didn't know, I remarked. Initially, my husband denied any knowledge, but now he seemed speechless. My in-laws were equally taken aback by this revelation. With our apartment lease already canceled and nowhere else to go, they turned to my husband for guidance on what to do next. Amidst the chaos, both my father-in-law and husband inadvertently triggered another trap, causing them to stumble. As I watched them sprawled on the ground, I couldn't help but chuckle. Feel free to make yourselves comfortable for as long as you need, I said, my tone more sarcastic than welcoming. They had been enamored by the villa's luxury, ignoring my warnings and showing little interest in my father's peculiar hobbies. Now, they were experiencing the consequences of their oversight. Even my attempts to explain the dangers of the traps fell on deaf ears. It's no big deal. We'll get used to it, my husband insisted confidently, and I responded with a knowing smile. I'll head back to the apartment to get things ready for our move, I told him before leaving them at the villa. However, the truth was, I had no plans for moving preparations. Instead, I intended to take a few days off to sort through my father's belongings. As expected, just 2 days later, my husband and in-laws had had enough. During that brief period, I found comfort in being alone, allowing me to slowly regain a sense of positivity as I planned my next steps. Before long, my father's villa gained attention as a unique attraction in the neighborhood. It became known as the Trick Mansion, and was regularly featured in local newsletters. Curious visitors would stop by whenever the villa was unoccupied. Looking back, I remembered strangers touring the villa and local children playing nearby, making it a vibrant spot in the community. My father had listed both the villas and our old home's phone numbers in the newsletters. However, with the family home sold, any inquiries would now come to the villa's number. Thanks to my upbringing, I was able to handle calls from foreign visitors as I was proficient in foreign languages. However, my husband and in-laws struggled with foreign languages. In addition to the stress of navigating the villa's traps, they were overwhelmed by unexpected visitors and foreign language calls. Exhausted and sleep-deprived, they retreated to the apartment. Why don't we all just live here together? My husband suggested. After eagerly awaiting my father's passing to claim the villa, they were ready to give it up after just 2 days. Instead of offering them tea, I handed my husband divorce papers that I had already prepared and signed. There's no way we can live together under these circumstances. If you understand, please leave quickly, I said with a heavy heart. I couldn't forgive him for disregarding my feelings and acting insensitively without consulting me or providing any explanation. My husband decided that we would move in with his parents, leaving me with all the household responsibilities, as he had never shared them before. Feeling trapped, I confronted him about his selfish decision-making and disregard for my feelings. What happened to the love you used to show me? I couldn't help but laugh at his obliviousness. How could I love someone who wished for my father's death and would rejoice when he passed? Handing him only the divorce papers, I escorted them out of the apartment. Firstly, this is my apartment. If anyone should leave, it's you. Despite my calm demeanor, my husband raised his voice, showing no concern for our neighbors. However, I remained firm. Natally, I'll call the police for trespassing. If you don't want that, leave quietly. Their voices fell silent upon realizing the apartment was in my name. They relied on me financially and didn't have much of their own. However, I had already made up my mind to sever ties before they could begin their lengthy persuasions. Both my husband and in-laws had limited savings. After being forced out of the apartment and unable to return to the villa, They settled into a cheap, low-quality apartment, struggling to make ends meet. They often reminisce about the previous apartment, considering it better. Initially, my husband felt remorseful and apologized frequently. However, as time passed, he became resentful of his parents. With their advancing age, they rarely found stable employment, depleting their savings and pension. Each move only exacerbated their familial discord, as they argued constantly within the thin walls of the apartment. Despite receiving noise complaints, they refused to apologize and instead retaliated, leading to strained relationships with their neighbors. They may soon need to search for another place to live. While my husband used to enjoy working from home, the current apartment lacked the luxury of a dedicated workspace. Struggling to focus on his work, his professional standing and sales took a nosedive. Now he barely makes ends meet with a late-night job at a convenience store and may need to take on multiple part-time gigs to survive. His in-laws regretted allowing their son to dictate their decisions, blaming him for their predicament during their frequent arguments. If only you had been more responsible, we wouldn't be in this mess. You should have double-checked everything. Don't pin the blame on me, she's the one who kept things hidden, they argued. I remained silent as they continued their accusations. If only you had communicated better with your father, none of this would have happened. I never imagined we'd end up like this because of our son, they lamented. Yet they had always harbored hopes of inheriting the villa and were elated when my father passed away. I'll never forget that. Following the divorce, I made significant progress in my career as a designer. To cope with my father's passing and these turbulent events, I incorporated ninja elements into my designs, sharing them on social media platforms. Their popularity surged, catching the attention of a major cosmetics company. To my surprise, they approached me for a project, designing packaging with an Asian flair, incorporating ninja elements. It felt like a way to honor my father's memory, so I eagerly accepted the opportunity and poured myself into the work. The project was a resounding success, propelling my career to new heights. With joy in my heart, I shared updates at my parents' graves, grateful for the chance to honor their memory in such a meaningful way. I chose to keep the mechanical house, preserving it as a special place brimming with memories of my father. I began organizing tours and transformed it into a space where both tourists and local children could enjoy themselves free of charge. Soon, the house gained significant media attention, providing much-needed income to cover ongoing expenses. Additionally, online articles about the house were translated into foreign languages, garnering support from international fans. Some of the donations even came from elderly individuals who shared my father's passion for ninjas. I'm committed to maintaining this enchanting place for years to come. Meanwhile, the mechanical house remains a lively center of activity, especially beloved by local children. Is this the famous mechanical house? Where are the surprises? Show us. With the help of dedicated local volunteers, precautions are taken to ensure the children can play safely. Foreign tourists are often amazed by features like the hidden floorboard doors. Wow, this is incredible. I'm so touched to experience such a unique place. What other surprises await? Despite losing my father and going through a divorce over the villa's inheritance, I believe the gains have outweighed the losses. The villa has evolved into a treasure trove of memories shared with loved ones. Through it all, I've experienced personal growth, embracing the future with renewed optimism and hope.
I spent $200,000. Kenny, who didn't even come to my mom's funeral, had suddenly flown overseas. $200,000. What did you do with all that money? Remember our nice piano at home? I sold it, dude. Being from a rich family has its perks. It was a good piano. I never thought it would sell for $200,000. Kenny thought the piano at home was his, but he was wrong. My condolences. I get all the inheritance from the family estate. But that piano was actually bought by our grandpa for my brother, so it's still his. My brother loves that piano and teaches piano now. He left it at our house because it's too big for his place. If my brother finds out we sold it without asking him, he'll be really mad. Just giving him money won't fix it. When I told Kenny this, he hung up right away. Hi, I'm Rachel Schneider, a 45-year-old office worker. My family has a long history tracing back to colonial times and is quite prominent in our community. Thanks to my late father's successful business, we now possess assets worth $9 million. Originally, My older brother was set to inherit the family estate, but he chose love over inheritance, opting to forego his rights to marry his girlfriend, who needed an heir for her family's wealth. This decision left me with the task of finding a spouse to carry on our family name. Despite my desire for independence and reluctance to rely on family wealth, I focused solely on my career, and before I knew it, I was in my mid-40s and still single. Realizing the urgency of continuing our family line, I decided to take action and attended a singles mixer. It was there that I met Kenny, my current husband. Surprisingly, he's 10 years younger than me, but at the event, he showed no interest in the younger women and approached me directly. "I'm not sure if you're okay with someone my age," I asked him multiple times. But Kenny gazed into my eyes and replied, "I'm a bit shy and not very assertive. I've always been attracted to older, more grounded women." Kenny's demeanor matched his words, gentle and reserved. I sensed he could bring a sense of calm to my family, which tends to be assertive. As our relationship blossomed, there was something important I needed to share with him. My mother had been ill and bedridden for the past year, and my sister-in-law, Catherine, and I were taking turns caring for her. Considering our age and the prospect of marriage, I struggled with how to reveal this to Kenny. Eventually, on our third date, I mustered the courage to tell him. To my relief, he not only accepted but also proposed, expressing his willingness to assist with caregiving. His kindness deeply moved me. At least, that's how I initially felt. Kenny works as a daycare teacher, but just 4 months into our marriage, he expressed a sudden desire to quit his job. When I inquired about the reason, he wore a remorseful expression and said, "Sorry, Rachel. The parents at the daycare are too demanding and complain a lot. I can't handle it anymore." It was evident that Kenny was struggling, appearing so timid. Normally, I would have encouraged him to persevere, but with him assisting in my mother's care and my pregnancy progressing, I remained silent. However, I soon began to regret my leniency. One day, as I exited the shower and approached the bedroom, I overheard Kenny whispering on the phone. What I heard left me shocked and unsettled. I managed to tie the knot without her suspecting a thing. I'm jobless. She bought my story about quitting work hook, line, and sinker. Little does she know, I ditched that job 2 years back. His conversation seemed directed at a friend on the other end of the line. A faint male voice responded, "You're quite the operator. Rachel's family is loaded, so I thought I hit the jackpot when I met her at that singles event. But let's face it, given her age, I was probably her only option." I felt duped. Was the sweet Kenny I fell for all an act? I wanted to confront him right then and there, but the thought of the baby stopped me cold. With Kenny's true colors revealed, I began to doubt our future. Today, Catherine will be looking after my mom until 5:00 p.m. Then it's my turn. I debated whether to confide in someone about Kenny. That's when my brother's wife, Catherine, approached me. "Rachel, you seem troubled. If there's anything on your mind, feel free to share," Catherine said, her kindness evident, having cared for her own mother for years and now mine. She's really good with Mom too. So I confided in her about Kenny, and she listened attentively. "It's good you opened up. Keeping it to yourself could harm your unborn child," she reassured me. "Yeah, I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Talking won't solve everything, but it does lighten the load. Still, this situation is quite something." Catherine looked genuinely concerned, almost as if it were her own problem. Suddenly, the doorbell rang, and Kenny walked in without waiting for an answer. Both of us were surprised, but Kenny acted as if nothing was wrong and smiled. "Rachel, I'll be helping with your mom's care from now on. You're not in the safe period yet, so I don't want you to strain yourself," Kenny said, playing the gentleman in front of me. "Really? Okay, let me show you how to care for her." "No, I'll learn from Catherine. You just rest at home." "Well, my brother's coming home early today, so we won't need her help." Upon hearing that, Catherine looked at me, shaking her head, as if to say, "It's okay. She might confront Kenny and get the full story once I'm gone." With that in mind, I decided to leave it to her and head home. But I couldn't shake my worry, so I pretended to leave but hid nearby. Catherine tried to start a conversation with Kenny, but he beat her to it. I've been meaning to ask, why are you taking care of your mother-in-law in this house? He asked, using the same tone as on the phone. Well, my husband's busy, and Rachel has her job. But more importantly, why you ask? Then Kenny interrupted. What? And began hurling insults at Catherine. You live in such a wealthy home. You'd have enough money to put your mother-in-law in a care facility, wouldn't you? Or is it something else? Did your husband give up his claim to this family's wealth? So you're trying to curry favor by taking care of her? That must be it. You'd be pretty upset if you married into money and didn't get a piece of the inheritance, wouldn't you? It was cruel. I was furious too, ready to leave the room. But just as I was about to, Catherine, noticing me, signaled with her eyes to stay put. Reluctantly, I remained silent and watched the scene unfold. You've hit a nerve, haven't you? If that's the case, leave right now. This family's wealth belongs to my wife and me, so I'll handle my mother-in-law's care alone from now on. With Kenny's stern declaration, Catherine felt it was pointless to argue further and left the scene. Sensing the tension, I discreetly stepped outside, concerned about Catherine's feelings and wondering how to apologize to her. Kenny took over Mom's care entirely, refusing any assistance from me. He only provided basic instructions on caregiving. But his neglectful approach led to tragic consequences, and our mother passed away. The funeral took place at the church where generations of our family had been laid to rest. However, Kenny was nowhere to be found from the moment Mom passed away. Despite my attempts to locate him, I was too overwhelmed with funeral arrangements to pursue the matter. Relatives and neighbors were puzzled by his absence. Catherine, grief-stricken at the altar, apologized for trusting Kenny with Mom's care. Approaching her, I tried to offer some comfort. Catherine, please don't blame yourself. It's not your fault. Rachel, it's not your fault either. But where is that man? I wanted to confront him today, and he disappears just as Mom passes away. Exactly. And didn't Kenny often leave the house while he was supposed to be caring for Mom? Where was he going? Yes, neighbors mentioned he was frequently out, almost as if he wasn't caregiving at all, just loafing around. They also mentioned a big truck that came by once. What was that about? I wanted to ask, but with the funeral, I didn't bring it up. Days passed, and Kenny still hadn't returned. Then, I received a call from him. Hey, Rachel, I'm in a fancy hotel in Europe, like the ones you see on TV travel shows, Kenny said nonchalantly. Kenny, you missed Mom's funeral, and now this. I spent $200,000. $200,000? Where did you get that kind of money? Remember the grand piano at our family home? I sold it. Who knew it was worth $200,000? Kenny confessed to selling the family's cherished grand piano and squandering the money on luxury travel in Europe. I never imagined Kenny would pull something like this while supposed to be caring for Mom. Our family home had tight security, but with family, it's different. That truck must have been there to move the piano. Why would you do something so selfish? The whole family was worried about you missing the funeral. Well, once you have a kid, you won't have much free time. Since you have a job, I guess I'll have to be the stay-at-home dad. Kenny's words left me stunned. Despite my anger, his willingness to take on childcare was a silver lining. But it seemed he was aiming to live off me. Additionally, Kenny seemed to think the piano belonged to me. Confronting Kenny, who had unknowingly sold a piano and spent the money, I started with, my condolences. Huh. What do you mean? Kenny seemed bewildered, so I explained about the piano. That piano belonged to my grandfather, bought for my brother. So it still belongs to him. Oh, really? I'll just apologize to your brother then, Kenny replied, lacking any remorse for selling someone else's property. Kenny only met my brother at our wedding, so it's understandable he didn't know. My brother is a piano teacher and has loved the piano since childhood. He begged our grandfather for that specific piano. Although there's no room for it in his house now, it's still his. He even dreams of starting his own school with it. The piano means everything to him. I can only imagine what punishment he'll have for you when he hears it was sold without permission. By the way, my brother despises dishonesty. As I explained, Kenny remained silent. Understand? Mere compensation won't suffice when he finds out you sold his beloved piano. He's not one to compromise. I wonder what punishment awaits you. With that warning, the call abruptly ended. He's probably regretting it now. I called my brother and told him everything. Needless to say, he was furious. The next day, Kenny rushed home, finding everyone gathered in the living room. "What's going on? Why is everyone here?" Kenny asked nervously. "I heard everything from Rachel," my brother said sternly. "What possessed you to sell someone else's property, especially something so valuable, without consulting the family?" Kenny tried to justify himself, visibly shaken. I was just trying to pitch in with the household chores out of boredom. When I saw the old, large grand piano, I figured no one was using it anymore. So you decided to sell it. Yeah, it seemed like a waste to just leave it there. My brother, wearing a stern expression, pressed further. Really? That piano was special, imported by our grandfather from a top European manufacturer. Where's the money from the sale? As anticipated, my brother was playing his part well. Everyone probably knew Kenny had spent all the money on an overseas trip, but my brother was aiming for a confession in front of everyone. Kenny seemed lost in thought, struggling to come up with an excuse. The sales money. Yeah, it hasn't come in yet. Kenny stammered, clearly flustered, but my brother wasn't buying it. You're lying? How deceitful can you get? And what about those souvenirs from Europe in that huge suitcase? Kenny recoiled as if struck by lightning, closing his eyes in shame. I'm sorry, I spent all the money. Kenny's admission left the relatives murmuring in shock. Everyone knew the value of that grand piano. They couldn't fathom how Kenny could blow $200,000 on just one trip overseas. My brother, looking down at Kenny, lifted his chin with his hand, locking eyes with him as he said, "As Rachel probably told you, that piano was mine. Now that it's gone, you'll repay every penny. If you can't, I'll sue you for theft. Are we clear?" My brother's intensity was palpable, almost resembling a mob boss. While this would typically be a family matter, my brother was likely using intimidation tactics, knowing Kenny was clueless about the law. Predictably, Kenny lost his voice and began sweating profusely. Then, with a terrified glance at me, he pleaded, "Rachel, please help me." His voice was desperate, but I had no intention of intervening. This mess was entirely of his own making. When I rejected his plea, Kenny resorted to a ludicrous argument, saying, "Don't be so cold. I looked after your mom while you were pregnant. I saw the trip as a reward for myself after caregiving. Let's just say we both agreed to sell the piano this way. Since we're siblings, it can't be considered theft, right?" I was so dumbfounded that my mouth hung open, unable to form a response. It was Catherine who stepped in to defend me. "That's enough. Didn't you tell Rachel not to assist with caregiving? You even accused me of being after the inheritance and tried to push me away. Kenny, did you say such awful things to my wife too?" "Yes, I didn't want to worry you, so I kept quiet. But this man must have been scheming to sell the piano without letting Rachel and me near the family home." Catherine's words resonated with me, remembering how Kenny prevented me from getting close to the family home when he said he'd handle our parents alone. I reached the same conclusion. My brother's anger flared up once more. "Listen closely. My wife cared for Mom because she wanted her to stay out of a facility. She agreed out of kindness, not for money. First, apologize to my wife right now." With my brother grabbing Kenny by the collar, tears welled up in Kenny's eyes as he knelt before Catherine. "I'm so sorry, Catherine." Kenny's apology for his disrespectful behavior towards Catherine didn't soften the cold gazes of the relatives. Then, one of them shouted at Kenny, "You need to repay the money from the piano sale promptly. We can't tolerate a criminal in the Schneider family. It'll stain our name." Misinterpreting the situation once more, Kenny made another peculiar remark. Exactly. We can't have a criminal in the family, right, bro? So let's keep calm. We'll work together as a couple to repay the debt gradually. Even my uncle was left speechless by Kenny's illogical response. Feeling that further discussion would be futile, I excused myself to retrieve something from my room. Ever since the phone incident, I had a divorce lawyer's business card ready. Kenny, call this number. I want our marriage to end. Let's handle things through legal channels. Kenny's face drained of color when he saw the business card I handed him. Why? We're expecting a baby. Why are you doing this? At that moment, I disclosed what Kenny had said to everyone on the phone. You heard that. It was just a joke. Do you think that's a valid excuse? I've known all along that you were after my inheritance. Everyone present glared at Kenny, realizing there was no way to justify his actions. Kenny responded with defiance, unwilling to admit his wrongdoing. Rachel, please, I need your help, Kenny pleaded in desperation. He explained that the buyer of the grand piano he sold wanted to return it and get a refund. When Kenny had sold the piano, he claimed it was in perfect condition. However, upon inspection, the buyer discovered a large engraving on the back indicating my brother's ownership. It seemed Kenny hadn't checked thoroughly. Instead of selling it through a reputable dealer, he likely chose a shady one enticed by offers like completely free, and now he faced the consequences. Kenny had to refund $200,000 to the buyer, a significant sum considering his debt to my brother. Despite Kenny's attempt to file for bankruptcy, my brother and I took legal action to prevent it. Now, burdened with more debt, Kenny worked tirelessly in manual labor. Eventually, the heirloom grand piano was safely returned. Relieved, my brother secured it with a strong lock and installed a security camera in the room, exercising caution. No one will touch that piano until I begin my piano lessons, my brother declared, unchanged from his childhood self, which brought a smile to my face. With his desire to start a piano school at our family home, I decided to discuss sharing our mother's inheritance. Feeling guilty for inheriting everything alone after Catherine's devoted care for our mother, I proposed the idea to my brother, who agreed. It ensured a positive relationship with his family in the future. And so, I welcomed a long-awaited baby girl. While some relatives hoped for an heir, I believe daughters tend to cherish their mothers longer in today's age. Besides, my mother, an only daughter herself, accepted a son-in-law, so if necessary, my daughter could do the same. Embracing single motherhood, I found unwavering support from Catherine, who had finished raising her own children. Grateful for her assistance during my mother's care, I felt deeply indebted to her. My brother eagerly volunteered to be a father figure for my daughter, his excitement palpable. Additionally, my brother and Catherine's 2 adult daughters, both kindergarten teachers, shared his passion for the piano, bonding with my daughter. Surrounded by such warmth and support, I felt immensely fortunate, and with gratitude, I resolved to face life's challenges head-on with my daughter by my side.